John,
Hi.
it's the bright light boy.
I took a shower.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
How's the water pressure?
Well, Tim has to repair the washing machine leak, and then the water pressure will be better.
Right, he'll turn the other pipe on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But at least you have a little water there to clean yourself up.
Yeah, I think that's what the water pressure is, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because it's a little bit low. How did you know that?
Well, when I was cleaning up all the shit out of the septic line, I had to take a shower, and I said, "John, can I take a shower so I can wash the shit off of my body?" And you said, you said yes, and I went up there, and it was warm, and it was dribbling. It was just, it wasn't like real.
We fixed that problem.
Right.
I mopped that up. I used the dehumidifier for days.
Yeah.
I mopped up the bathroom, the other bathroom.
Well, we 99.9% of the shit and water and toilet paper we sucked out of there with the shop vac, and that's what saved the day. Because if I hadn't had that shop vac, man, that shit would have been in here. That little ledge at the
you
bathroom.
You were the one who the toilet was filled up with all the shit because I didn't flush it, and you flushed it all down to the throat.
No, John. No, John. The whole line, every bit of this house was just full of toilet paper. Like,
it's really clean.
Now it is. The guy had a machine that was super surreal. It was this little hose about the size of your thumb, and it had a jet, of water that was stronger than a fire hose, and it had a TV, fiber optic TV, and a fiber optic spotlight. So, man, and he could move the hose around so he could blow it out. But there was so much shit, so he was down below, and when he was blowing it up, it kind of came out of the hole in the floor where the toilet goes. And like I said, if I hadn't just been there and the shop vac just being right there, I grabbed it and just sucked up 90.999% of all the shit and water and toilet paper. And there was so much toilet paper, the guy said he had never seen a septic line so full of toilet paper other than like an apartment house, So it was surreal. And I really wanted to take a video of it because the toilet paper was coming out of the pipe like a worm. It was really kind of, that's a little dangerous, that chair there. It doesn't stop. Just keeps going back.
I don't know if I can have you stay here so how long I can.
John, you threw me out the other day.
The worm was coming out of my ass.
No, I didn't say that.
I knew that chair fell back that way, and I didn't know
John,
you got it out of the trash.
John, relax. I'm not going to be here for more than a few days. I'm going to help you do all the things you want. And
you started getting annoying a few years ago,
John,
and it started affecting my health sometimes, and that's why I keep.
John, here, sit down. Here, sit down here, and I'll sit here, and you tell me how it annoys you.
What annoys me? Please don't fall down in it.
I won't fall, John. I need to stay here at least until Monday or Tuesday, and then I'll go.
Alexa, what is the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Alexa, turn the volume all the way up. Alexa, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
Tomorrow, there will be showers, with a high of 64 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 48 degrees.
See, it's going to rain. It's not good. I mean, my car breaks down.
What's the weather going to be like the next week? Alexa, what's the weather going to be like the next week? Well, but yours is...
The forecast for the next 7 days. Thursday.
Alexa, stop.
John, you said
it's colder?
Yes, by 20 degrees.
How's it 20 degrees colder?
Because I am further north.
Is it really 20 degrees
yes.
colder?
John, you told me yesterday on the phone, please come back, stay, please come back, and you can stay here a few days, you can stay here till next week. Oh, I did that. I did. Who's the person to put the chair here? Did I put it here? No, you did.
Okay, you want me to switch chairs?
No, sit right there.
I thought it was being nice to have a roll chair that you could roll to the.
But it's okay. It is nice. Oh, thank you very much. But go ahead, sit down there. I mean, what are you accusing me of? What are you accusing me of?
Nothing. Don't worry about it. You want the little gray chair you used to have?
No, I'm fine.
It's in that room.
Okay, I'm good here. I'm not.
I'm gonna bring it in here.
John, I can sit straight up.
Just put that one in instead,
Okay, it's not a problem.
just to be nice.
Uh-huh.
But don't lean back in that. 'cause
I know that, John. I already realized that when it was over by the dining room table, I knew it. When it was in the other side of the thing, I knew it. When you bought it, I knew it.
Put this one there.
No, you can sit in that. You can sit anywhere you want. But you just don't throw me out once I get here. Once it took me so much effort to get here. Once I almost broke my car down getting here. Because
We'll just wait till like maybe a few more days or weeks.
yes, no, I don't want to stay here forever. A few more days. That's just a few more days.
Okay, and can you help me on some stuff?
Of course, that's why I'm here to help.
Okay.
You know, that's
Are you
why.
going somewhere tomorrow?
No, it's going to rain. I'm going to stay here.
Okay. Yeah.
And the stuff I took out of my car was so you could sit in the front seat, so I could take you to your parents' house, so you could get your car.
I don't even want to be in the same place as you right now.
Okay, then don't.
Upstairs.
Okay, good. I didn't come up to see you. You came down to see me.
You're like in survival mode ever since you had to be in the cold.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. No.
difficult
Yes.
sometimes to be around.
And also, well, because.
I mean, it's not like anything's actually going to happen. A worm is not going to come out of my ass.
No. But you've already thrown me out twice in the last week. Last
Even if you
Thursday
got thrown out. It says it's 64 degrees tomorrow.
and raining
Is it 20 degrees colder in Tennessee?
because it's
Or in Virginia.
yeah, but it's north.
You mean the altitude is higher?
Yes, and it's north of
It's
here.
further south.
It's no. It's further west. It's due west. It's
I
not
thought
south.
Tennessee is south of North Carolina.
No. It's
not?
no.
Where is Tennessee?
It's north of North Carolina, and it goes. Yes, it goes all the way up to
But I
Kentucky.
thought West Virginia is
It's in the Ohio Valley.
West Virginia's up here. Virginia's here.
It's right next to Tennessee's. Right next.
Tennessee's next to Virginia.
Yeah, you're next.
Oh, it's further south.
No.
I'm gonna look on a map.
Yeah, well, good idea. Well, how'd that go?
I don't know. Wait, let me turn this map. Hey. The Appalachian Mountains. That's where we live, right?
I live in Tennessee, and I live in both the Appalachian and the Blue Ridge. Right here. See, this is what I was talking about. See, guys, here's what I was talking about, right?
How do people ever?
See, here is where the shit came out of the hole. Came up out of this and filled this whole thing up with toilet paper because it's under like a fire hose. And I was right here, and I was watching it expand all through there. And the shop vac was right here. I plugged it in. I just stood here sucking it up. And that didn't come out of your asshole. It came out of this hole in the floor, John. Not your asshole. I never said anything about your asshole. You know?
I'm going upstairs.
Okay, that's cool. I'll see you in the morning. Thanks for the egg.
Okay. If it starts annoying me,
John, don't let it annoy. Don't let it annoy you. Don't let it annoy you.
I don't know what you did with this.
I didn't even go up there, John. I haven't been on the steps. Haven't been up in those steps for 2 days. Well, 4 days. 4 days. Haven't been up there for 4 days. You have gone up and down many, many times. John, what I'm trying to be is a friend. I'm trying to describe You have to get a life that isn't revolving around annoyances. I mean, you could be annoyed forever. And when I'm talking to you, I'm not being annoying. I'm being truthful. You don't want to hear it, you know? And when I leave, there will be no one here to tell you the truth. There'll be no one here to help you do anything.
I'll be in fucking Los Angeles and act how I fucking feel, man.
Okay. So why aren't you there now?
Because it costs money to live in Los Angeles, and I have to sell my house so I have the money to live there.
Okay. So why haven't you listed the house?
Just get away from me. It's so annoying. Because I have a few more things I want to do to the house.
Okay. So the only reason I did that is that, I was in there kind of sleeping, texting to a friend, and John, knocks on the thing, and he's got, the live chat going, right? Whenever I'm here, I'm his captive little squirrel, and yep. Truth is, he'll never leave, right? And this is basically my last try to, and you saw how annoying was I? On a scale of 1 to 10, gang, how annoying would you say I was? Because he basically, we all write our own script, right? We all tell the story of our life and from our own subjective point of view. We all do, right? 25. So I was zero annoying. Jane says I'm zero annoying. Fish, is that me being annoying? Was I 25% annoying when I said 1 to 10 and you put 25? Was I being annoying? Was that me being annoying? Oh, you meant John. Okay. And so again, this is like a training film, right? And he will probably come down and scream at me. I took everything out of the car so he could get in the car. He wanted me to take him there to get his car back. Right? And I couldn't take him because it was full of stuff. Right? And, half the stuff I took out is food that I'm going to use to cook for him. Right? So he doesn't see any of these things. Right? He says, "Oh, you cost me money," So here we are, middle of February, and I'm feeling confident next week I'll just go and spring will come, and I'll have to deal with the, Colonel Sanders and the tweakers. And it's basically, all of this is a prime example of the world kind of, the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. It's kind of where we're at, and it's beyond annoying. If you were in Ukraine right now, that is beyond annoying, Close to 100,000 innocent citizens are dying in the Ukraine. More than somewhere between 100,000 and 220,000 Russian soldiers have died. And Russia has kidnapped 4 million women and children because their demographics are so bad. They want, new blood. They think they can, pawn these girls off on Russian guys, and they'll have babies, and they'll in 5 years they'll have, And Poland, Poland took, close to 7 million Ukrainians that went through. I don't know how many are there now, but at least 1 million have settled into Ukraine. And most of them were mommies and children, right? And a good portion, and the Polish are treating them very nice. So within 5 to 6 years, Poland will have the most kick-ass army in Europe. And they have been developing their own, for the last 5 years, military-industrial complex, right? They're having homegrown weapons they're building. And Ukraine has shown quite a adroit sense of having its own military-industrial complex, right? So it's pretty obvious that, they've been hoodwinked into, being that war is going to last all the way to the last Ukrainian, right? And even because that's how Russia fights a war. Because it's pretty obvious, that basically either Vladimir, Russian Vlad, and like this is the war of the two Vlads, Putin and the stand-up comedian, right? And they've been fighting in the Donbass up there in the east for the last 8 years. So what that has done is given the Ukrainians a live fire exercise, right? It has given the NATO allies who've gone there and studied how this war is going on, and they have used it to train 70,000 of the Ukrainian army to be the tip of the spear, right? And so they kind of, whether I have a sense that Vlad is reading a script, that he is part of the, unipolar transnational corporate fascist oligarchy, what I call the hidden hand. Other people call Mr. Globaloney or, globalism. And they are rebranding, right? And Fish, what is your insight on the rebranding motif? I mean, you are the queen of supply chain, so you have seen whole supply chains broken, not because of anything other than somebody wants to change the modality of the process, right? And that's what we're going through, right? I have a sense that we are heading for. I mean, we are already in a fascist state, but we are comfy. We're like the frog who jumps in that pot, and then it gets put on the burner, and the frog says, "Ooh, this is nice and warm." Ooh, then the water starts boiling, and oh, look, it's a jacuzzi, and then he's soup, right? So pretty much everyone's been on that motif for the last 30 years, right? And as the demographics have changed, especially in China and Russia, where the majority of the population is old, and they don't have enough young people to manufacture, to create wealth, and to buy stuff, right? They don't have people to buy stuff. So China's in a real bad state. I mean, and their military, they spent a lot of money on building a military, but it's not unified, it's not integrated. And it's, they built a 700 ship Navy that the boats can't go any further than 400 miles on one tank of gas. And they don't have the technology to, basically refuel out at sea. The U.S. has that, right? And our Navy has been, for the last 40 years, protecting the sea lanes for commerce. That's what we've been doing. Now, we've been controlling that commerce. It's within, we did it because it behooved us, but we're pulling back, right? And that's one reason why JoJo just pulled the light switch on Afghanistan, right? He's saying, okay, enough of this. We're not doing this anymore. And he's reading his script, right? We had 20 years of nonstop, never-ending war, and the military-industrial complex got a lot of money. A lot of people made book on that. And here we are, right? And so I was talking to a friend of mine today, a really brilliant, beautiful artist, activist, right? So she is working, we both have been working, she and I, here in Roanoke for 20 years, trying to get the different groups together to work together. This town has more nonprofits than you could shake a stick at. It has, Goodwill, United Way, Salvation Army, The Mission, TAP, HAT, and about 20 others, and then 600 churches that are all tax-free, right? And none of them, the only one that does a fair job at servicing the needs of the poor is the Salvation Army. The Mission makes 50 grand a head. I work for them, and I was getting guys off drugs, and I was taking over the buildings behind the Mission, and having guys who were in the Mission, work on fixing up, demoing it out, and then putting plumbing and electric in and fixing the roof and that kind of stuff, and making a legal, insured, inspected place. And each of those people got their own space, right? If you want, it's not rocket science. You want to get rid of homeless people, you get them a home, not a mission, not a place they can stay for the night, but a home. And that's what I was doing. And I got fired for it, right? And then I tried to, say, hey, we did 2 buildings, and what your Habitat and a number of churches are taking over these buildings and fixing them up and then selling them for market value, and basically changing the neighborhoods, right? And the whole Black neighborhood has basically been redlined, right? And they built Orange Avenue, they built the Coliseum and the Convention Center, and they built 240 right through the Black neighborhood, right through their business, right? Right at the height of, Jim Crow enabled the Black people to become the 7th largest economy. The Black people of America became the 7th largest economy in the world in the 50s, right? And 60s. And LBJ went to you got to realize that the liberals in the 60s were Republicans, like Rockefeller, right? Guys like that were, they aren't the Republican Party of today, right? And, it's interesting that at a certain point in Donald Trump's life, he was a liberal Democrat, right? He was good friends with Bill and Hillary. You just have to step back and look at it. And why I did that little soap opera with John was, you say anything to him, and he sees it as an attack, right? You say the nicest things to him, and he'll, I was talking about the septic guy here and why, I took a shower upstairs, right? And it's because I was covered in his feces, right? And toilet paper. What friend would do that? Meaning, like I said, if I hadn't been there with a shot back, this all would have been covered in shit, right? Like up to about there. And it would have gone because this floor goes towards the kitchen, right? If you put water here, a lot of water, it'll go into the kitchen. So when George poured this floor, it's like he didn't have a level. Anyway, so and John, he's been here. I left. Well, really, let's see. He's been here 2 years without me, and I've only come and visited twice before this time. No, that's not true. Last February, I got stuck here. I came to visit him. I was visiting some other friends, and I came up here, and we had an ice storm. I got stuck here for 3 weeks. And, I tried to, like I did when it was cold here last week. I was turning down the heat. I was turning up the electric heaters down here and just starting the fire in that fireplace. You saw the videos, right? So it's a motif of like I say, I call John the canary in the coal mine of social inequity. It's like he's a perfect example of what's going on in the world. You just have to look at John, right? And Roanoke is the microcosm of the world, of the United States, right? And all the problems, all the real positive things, all the opportunities, all the assets, all the potential of doing amazing things is right here in Roanoke. Yeah. I really don't know. It's one or the other, or it doesn't matter, But yes, coffee is not a good thing. I mean, we all have substances that we shouldn't take, Mine is food, I gained 240 pounds, but, I want to show you something. This is kind of amusing. Let's see. I'll put this guy on. So this ain't fat. This is all skin. This is what I used to be. And the fat, I can get, my body got rid of the fat, but the skin is a little tougher to get rid of, right? And I'm not digging down. I have a whole nother flap over here. But, and so that's not fat. That's skin that used to house fat, right? And so, it was pretty obvious, my indulgence of a lifestyle when I worked for the, corporate desperate lawyers, almost 15 years of that, not killed me in a plate of spaghetti. Came back in a hospital and they were going to cut my legs off and crack my chest and do a quadruple bypass. And I said, no, you're not. Roll me back in that ICU. Get me that lawyer. So I said, listen, lawyer boy, you want me to do that job for you? Well, cutting my legs off and cracking my chest wouldn't have done it. I'd be dead. What I need is go back to your beautiful little hacienda down in the Keys, and I need a colonic therapist. I need a, massage therapist. I need I gave him a whole list of things I needed, and he went off and got them. And, for a week and a half, I was getting a colonic every day or every other day and a massage 2 or 3 times a day and doing physical therapy. And, all of the things had the gout and all that kind of stuff in my legs went away. And my diet, right? I took supplements and I had a really good doctor there, an endocrinologist. And so within a week, turned it right around, right? I didn't lose all that weight, but I got, not needing my legs chopped off or my heart ripped open. So I went and took care of his problem. And then he was nice enough to put me back down in his hacienda, a really $1 million place, with a big, yacht and the whole thing. And he would just let me stay there for 2 more weeks and paid all those people to, work on me some more. So it really turned my everything around. And so I then went to a friend of mine in West Virginia who has a beautiful farm. And I kind of just, spring was springing. And so I was there and I helped him out. And I stayed a good month with them. And then I went back to here, the school, because I still owned the school at that time. And I started getting things together, and, and at that time I had Bella and Homie with me, my 2 dogs, my mama dog and my son. And it was obvious that something needed to change. And Bella kind of sacrificed herself. I mean, she was already old. She was already 26, give or take a year or two. And she was like spry and bounced around and went after that ball every time I threw it. But once we got back here, she just kind of slowed down and didn't eat that much. She was watching me not eat much. You know, I lived on oatmeal and onions because I got back here and I had a big gigantic bag of oatmeal and a big bag of onions. Anyway, so that was that, as they say. And I basically what happened was one day, you know, I came out from where I was, either upstairs or someplace, and I was looking for the dogs. I called them, and Homie came over, and I said, "Homie, where's Bella?" So he said, like, over here. So we went over there, and down by the fire pit, she had dug a hole, and she was lying in it, right? And she was like trying it out, you know? And she was like digging a little over here and lying down, dig a little more over there. And she dug a pretty deep hole. I mean, not just like an indentation where dogs do that and lie to be cool, I mean, temperature-wise, or warm, because, you know, doing that will protect them either way. And so anyway, but no, she was going deeper. So I looked at her and said, "What are you doing?" And she's, you know, looked at me going, "Well, I'm digging my grave," right? And so I was like, okay. So anyway, you know, a week or two, and she kind of, when she started doing that, she ate a little bit more. We played a little more with the ball. She was more, Homie was the one, he was like a lap dog. I mean, he's a 50-pound lap dog. And Bella was more like, she would sit next to me and lean into my leg and then have me rub her head. That was her thing when she wanted to be sweet to me. And so she was doing that more. And then one morning I woke up and Homie's like at the bed, like really upset, right? You know, as soon as I kind of, he didn't make any noise while I was asleep, but as soon as I was waking up, and so I said, "What's?" And so there was Bella. She had died and she was in her grave, right? So I went and got a big plastic bag and I kind of scooped her into it and tied it at one end. And I had 2 bags of ready mix cement, right? So I got a big couple buckets of water and mixed up the cement and, you know, covered her up in cement so no animals would go after her, right? And then I had a couple bags of rock, threw that on top of that, and then had another bag of ready mix and put that on top of that. And then I covered it up with dirt and leaves, and that's where she is to this day. And I was doing better, but I was still messed up. I had to, you know, I had a wheelchair. You've seen this place, it's got steps here, right? So I was down here on the main floor here. It's in a wheelchair. And I had a walker, right? And you know, I was going to the urgent care here and I was having, you know, diabetic sores on my legs, which can get carried away and you know, they have to chop a toe off here and a foot off there. So I was really on top of that. So I was dealing with all of that and still losing my weight. So by the time, Bella died, I think around, August, early August. I was, you know, I had lost 40 pounds. You know, I was like maybe April when I was in Florida and I died, or maybe March. And I'd already lost about 60 pounds just by changing my diet, right? And walking, and I walked and walked, even though I needed a wheelchair and and my legs were in braces, and I was walking with a walker. I was walking around. I was, you know, moving my body, right? Because I was a physical therapist, I was a healer, I had a practice, I knew what was right and what I needed to do, what I didn't need to do. Anyway, so I knew I couldn't take, and I wasn't making any money, and I made a lot of money in those 15 years, but I spent it all. I mean, I bought this place with it. I bought some other real estate with it. I sold it, did this, did that. But at the end of the day, I spent all the money, right? And I did a lot of really amazing things with it, art things with it, organizational things, helping people out, taking, like the guys who were in the mission, I, helped them get their own house. We took over 2 houses, and then I got fired and castigated for doing that. And the police were the only guys who backed me up. They said, "This is the best thing. We want more of this. We'll help him do this," because basically those 2 houses, 16 people, 8 lived in each. They're big, big houses, and we made each bedroom into like a little apartment, right? I mean, had their own bathroom, and had a nice little kind of Murphy bed and a nice little Murphy kitchen, and a nice big open space, right? A home, that you could call a home. And each had their own heaters. We put and because I wanted to meter each of these little rooms so they could have an electric bill, so the powers that be couldn't kick them out. The electric bill is the gold standard of this, right? So, so anyway. Where was I going? Oh, yes. So around September, I knew I couldn't take, because I had no money. I really had, and I wasn't 65 yet. I was 2 years from, I was 2014. I fell into the spaghetti, so I was 64. Wasn't quite 65, right? So, and I was dealing with the powers that be to get, disabled, blah, 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 can't get any kind of help from, social services, right? And it was tough. Forget about it, So it was, but had tenacity and knew the system and went at it, and, got a little bit of, I was living on, like I said, about $250, right? And healthcare, right? And a few other things of that nature to service. But, there was no assistance for utilities or insurance or nothing, right? So whatever little cash I was getting or had was going into things like that. So I was living on nothing. I couldn't even afford dog food for Homie. So in September, I had a friend of mine up there in Floyd who was a goat herder, and I took Homie up there and spent a couple of days with them. And he got to, like the family and the kids, and he got to be what his gene pool said he was, a shepherd dog. And so he was doing that, and the grandpa, who was a real, goat guy, and and a trainer of dogs. Homer was already trained to serve and love, and he was smart, and so he picked it up real fast. It was in his gene pool to do it, and so he was happy to do it. And then I left, right, and I came back 2 or 3 weeks later. And he saw the car coming, and he came running over, and I got out, and he jumped right in the car, like, "Okay, that was fun, but I'm ready to go. We got to go back to work." And I said, "Homie, come on, out of the car." So he got out of the car, went over, and I sat down with him. I said, "So this is it, buddy. This is your new family, and I'll be a great memory, right? We had great fun. You're 8 years old now. Now you're a man. You can, do your job. You got another 10 years left in you to serve this family, and they love you and you love them. So this is the last time you're going to see me. And I drove away. And that was, 2000 and September. So it was, not 2015 yet. And so it was quite, I didn't get I knew some people in real estate and they just laughed. And so, why would I? No. And then one day, John showed up at the front door, right? And he goes, I want to buy this place, right? And I said, oh, really? So I had about, X amount of debt that I had. So I said, okay, this is how much I need to get out of here. And I need to be able to stay here for a few months, and I need to be able to store some of my stuff here until I can get rid of it. And he agreed to everything because he really wanted this. And so, we closed the deal, and I paid off my debts, and I stayed here, and the 2 months turned into like a year and a half, right? And then he threw me out when he brought the Muscovite girl in, and that was insane. So, I think I've told you the story. He drove all the way to Ronald Reagan to pick her up at the airport and drove her back, and she hadn't eaten anything on the airplane, and he didn't stop to get her anything to eat. So, but I kind of sensed this, so I made an amazing dinner. I made a stuffed chicken and vegetables and bread and wine and cheese and salad and a beautiful chocolate cake and a dessert wine, and I sent them upstairs, right? And so that was about 10:30 in the evening, 11 p.m., and I went to bed, and I was woken up around 5. Get out. And he had a hammer in his hand. Get out, right? And I went out, so he stood over me while it took me an hour to pack up the car, right? And so staying here, I never really unpack the car completely, right? Because I know he's going to get out, because he's done it 30-something times. It's probably more than 32. But the next, so anyway, I took off, and I went up to this little town I know in West Virginia. I helped get there. I mean, this, mountaintop flood blew the town out, and the bridge that, got you into the town, and the power lines right? So everything, it was a nice town, though. It was like, back in the day, it was kind of a coal city. It had a population of about 3,000 at its heyday, and had electricity and gymnasium, a high school, and everything, all of that, hospital, nice roads, nice stores, nice houses, nice little, company town. And then it got hit by the mountaintop removal, and the state just took it off the register, period, because they weren't going to service it. And they weren't going to force the coal company to, fix everything. And so the majority of the people left, and about 200 didn't have any money, right? And so this girl I knew, I was working with the church at that time, trying to get them to be more socially conscious. There's 600 churches in Roanoke, and there's only 2 that are somewhat socially conscious, right? So anyway, the Catholic Church and this other, I think, Methodist church, right? So anyway, and I was trying to get all the churches together to work together, to share their resources. Because I said, man, there's so many churches. If everyone just put in half of what they get on the plate to serve the poor and needy in Roanoke, we could fix this problem overnight. Nobody wanted to do that. Anyway, but I met this girl, and girls can get me to do almost anything. And so she said, "There's this town up in West Virginia that I've been trying to help, and you really are technically able. They really need." So I went up there, and in West Virginia, it's legal. You dig a hole anywhere in West Virginia, and oil or coal or gas comes flying out the hole, right? So most like why natural gas was brought out as a product was when they started drilling for oil. Natural gas came along with the oil, right? And they would just burn that off, right? And then they realized, well, we could actually, it's free. I mean, getting the oil out costs, even to today, a barrel of oil, 55 gallons of oil, costs 25 cents to get out of the ground. From finding it, the cost of finding it, drilling it, pumping it out to the wellhead, 25 cents. And then taking it from there through a pipeline to either a customer like Russia. I mean, that's why Russia was making so much money, was that and it was so corrupt, because the majority of that money, instead of going into the country, into the coffers of the country, right, it went into the oligarchs' pockets, and then they took it out of the country. And that's why Russia has a real problem with their finances. And with all the kind of economic squeezing that's been done to them, it's going to be, whoa, baby. So when John threw me out, I went up to that town because I helped it 2 years before with this young girl, and I got their water system going, I got their electrics going, I got gas going, and everyone had a house because everyone left, and there were a lot of nice houses, right? But they had no gas, electric, or water, or a road. But they had found a place up above the town. You could cross the river when it wasn't raining. If it was kind of dry, you could cross, right? And they had a footbridge. You could park on one side and walk into town. But because the posts that the highway had been on, they were still there. It just washed the highway away. But the concrete columns were there. So they, built a thing. The county did that. The state did that when they were trying to think if they could, they did that like almost immediately after that catastrophe, just so they could get people in there to get people out from underneath things. So anyway, and that was a fun thing, to get, because all that stuff was there. It was just like sticking it together. It's like Legos, right? The gas was there, and it was right there where they had a big generator that ran on gas, right? It just, there were a few things wrong with it. And there was a guy, I knew a guy who I brought up there who was a really good guy with that kind of utilities. And so he got it going. He thought it was cool. And he was also good with the diesel engine that ran on the gas. And, well, basically, once we got that sucker started, I hit the switch, bang, everything went on. Power went to all the houses. And then it went to the septic thing, to clean the water, clean their septic. And it got the well and filling the big tank with water, so the whole town had water, In less than a week, this guy, I, and about 4 other guys who were handy and knowledgeable about a lot of things, got it working. It was like really an amazing thing. And if people only knew how much fun and rewarding that is, right? And so, I try to influence John to see that, just from, he goes on and on about how hard it is to work on this place, blah, blah, blah. Please, 90% of the work, he had guys do it, like all of the, everything, he didn't put in the air conditioning, he didn't put in the heat pump, he didn't, build, fix the roofs. I mean, he did go up there and patch a few things here and there, but these guys put new roofs on everything, that he got, and gutters, and there were things that they were about to fall down, and they structurally supported them, and did all this stuff. And yes, John's money or his family's money went to pay for all that, but nobody in his right mind of the insurance guys would insure this place, right? But for John to get his loan, he had to get it insured. So the guy who insured it for me, I went to him and said, so I'm going to sell it to this guy. Come on, give him insurance. And he did. Right? And that's who, but John called up all the people who spot, no one's going to touch this place with a 10-foot pole. But he fixed everything up to, safe and above adequate, right? I mean, this place is quite amazing. And you have to give John the props because he was there, but it's like, his whole freaking septic line, I mean, from top to bottom. And it's all over, the thing snakes all over the place. I mean, the guy who put this stuff in, George Solanovich, I mean, first of all, he used pipe. He got, cast iron pipe out of buildings that his buddy was pulling down. And that was the lines he used. It was like, what? You can't buy some PVC? No, George did not buy anything. All the windows, all the doors, everything. See, all this stuff, that's all came out of other buildings downtown, which is kind of cool. I mean, this place is an art piece. Meaning this should be in the Museum of Modern Art, not, being sold to some tweaker. But anyway, my sense of what's going to go on here is that someone with some either state, it's like the state has a lot of historical sensibility about it, Virginia. And I bought a couple old buildings in Lynchburg and Bedford and Buchanan that were like Revolutionary and Civil War times. And people were just using them as shacks. And I bought them from this lawyer who just wanted to get out of here. His father died, and he just wanted to cash in, and no one wanted to buy in this stuff. And he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, so I did it. And he was totally gaga for history, so he had lined it up for the state to renovate all these buildings back to their original form, right? And it wasn't going to cost me a nickel. They were going to spend like a couple of million on it, just as long as I let them do it their way. And they would, it could be commercial spaces down below and apartments up above, but it had to look from the outside and other architectural things had to be up to snuff. So, hey, no problem. You're going to do that? Sure. I don't have to pay anything? Great. So the deal was signed, and the only thing getting in the way was the founding, the fathers of Bedford. And they didn't want it to happen. They didn't want anything to change in their little town if they weren't in control of it, right? So, and so the only thing they could do was there was a gigantic 200-car parking lot right in the back of where these buildings were. I mean, you walked out the back door, you were in the parking lot, right? So for business, it was great, right? And so, we put in all the things, and the guy goes, well, the city manager goes, well, we can't we just have a new ordinance that no one can park in that parking lot overnight. I said, what are you talking about? I'm going to have 4 apartments. Each of those apartments needs 2 parking spots. That's 8 parking spots out of 200. Just right there where the parking spots run up against the sidewalk of my building. Just paint them, yellow and say, just for these guys, everyone else can't park here. Oh, we can't do that. And this one goes, but I have a lot that's 5 blocks on the other side of town. I'll rent it to you for $500 so your people can park their cars there and walk. I said, so they're going to, have all these groceries and they have to walk 5 blocks? You're nuts. So I said, fuck you, assholes. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave the buildings just the way they fucking are. Because all the commercial spaces were up to snuff, right? I could rent them out, no problem. And I found people to rent them out who really wanted those spaces and paid me more than I even thought was, what I was going to charge, like double. So I said, fine. And they were great people to rent to because they took care of it. They treated it like it was their own. And the bank that was right in that parking lot there, I went over to them and said, okay, I'm going to rent these things out. And I said, oh, yes, you're going to rent to my sister. She's wanted to open a shop there for, since we were in grade school. I said, oh, good. well, I want to open an account, and I want these 4 different business people to just be able to walk into this bank and put the money into that account to pay the rent. Oh, we can do that. I said, great. And she goes, well, and if you do you have $3,000? I said, yeah, I got $3,000. She goes, well, I have a CD account that do that. And instead of getting 0.4% interest, you'll get 16% interest. This is when interest rates were up. I mean, the first time I ever bought any real estate was during Jimmy Carter's time, and interest rates were 36%, not 9, 36. So anyway, so I did that. I got this account, and I was making book on every nickel these people put in there, right? And I didn't touch it, right? Because they gave me a debit card, and they gave me a credit card too, and took it out of. I mean, it was. I just walked right into it, right? And so when I died, I kind of had to get rid of all that stuff to get any kind of health care, any kind of social help. I couldn't own anything except I could own 1 house, 1 car, right? So that was basically what I did. I cashed because I wasn't working, and I had these things that were my assets, but I basically liquidated them and lived off them for about 2 years, and got myself to where I wasn't wearing clamps on my leg. Well, I still was wearing the clamps when I met John, but I had lost about 160 pounds in that year and a half. So, I mean, you can do anything with conscious intent. You can make anything work, right? And when you serve Love's Co-Creation, and Love's Co-Creation is a lot deeper than praise Jesus, praise God, Jimmy, whatever, right? No, I just want to go to heaven, No, it's not like a gated community, and pretty much if people really knew what was going on, they would totally freak, because it's more like the X-Files than anything else. Last night, I stayed in a motel for the first time in forever, and took showers. I took 4 or 5 showers in that evening. I got there, around just before dark 30, and got myself in, and I had a bunch of food. So I'd made, I've made about 16 meals that John and I have eaten in the last week and a half that I've been here. And I basically, we'd eat the meal, and I would leave it in the, I'm a 1-dish kind of guy. I mean, I leave what I made on the stovetop. So the next day I cut up an onion or a tomato or this or that and make something else, right? So that's what I did. And so in John's freezer, he's got a ton of these lean cuisine, vegan meals that cost $7 a piece. And I have about 8, the kind of bag you get from Walmart's to, put your stuff in. I use it to put food in. I mean, they're totally sanitary, and, that meal is cool. It's, isn't hot. You can't put the hot meal in the plastic bag, but you can put the cold meal in there and then put it in the freezer, right? So he's got about 8 of those bags that are really good, fresh, vegetable, tofu kind of meals. Anyway, so I've been doing that. And so tonight, John said, "You going to make anything?" I said, "No, I'm not really. I'm going to." Yeah, so he brought down his last 4 eggs and basically cracked them, in a hot skillet, and then served them like beyond runny. So I cooked them some more. But, my sensibility, I'm an Aquarian, right? Aquarians are all logical. My first wife called me a compassionate computer. I mean, that's, I could get my motor running, but I always analyze everything, right? And so she on one side liked that because she was a Cancer. She was a total neuron. And so she was amazing. She could, I mean, no one's psychic. She was, right? She couldn't read people's minds, but she had an antenna that was, and she thought she was nuts. And I, for 8 years, no, baby, you are just amazing. I helped her bring that out. And I've tried to do that for John. John is amazing, but he doesn't want to, why, he wants to go to California and make movies. I mean, why isn't he there now making movies, right? To finish that, there's always an excuse, right? This place is set up. He could rent this out. He found the right people for probably $2,500 and still keep his apartment upstairs, meaning this floor and downstairs. There's 4 bedrooms here, right? 2 baths, 3 baths, right? And there's 2 little apartments on the outside of this building, right? So anyway, he could easily rent those out, right? When he went to Texas to see his kids one time and had, as he says, I've been, institutionalized twice going there. It's so anxious, I can't take it. Blah, blah, blah. And so one of those times he ended up in one of those places for a week or 2. Anyway, this guy was looking. He had come here to look at this place to rent, right? This floor, right? And John's live upstairs, right? I live in that little room there, and he'd have downstairs and up here. And he just needed to get out someplace, right? He couldn't find any place, right? He wanted to. Anyway, so John just, he's one of those guys who knows, get out, right? And then the next day, John gets on the airplane, right? Anyway, I gave the guy my phone number. He calls me up, and I said, well, you're really desperate, aren't you? He goes, oh, yeah, I can't find any place. Well, I said, move in, right? What you offered, $1,800, that's amazingly generous, right? Sure. And, so he did. I signed a deal for John, right? John shows up, 3 weeks later after whatever he went through in Texas. And that, being an institution kind of wakes John up, ooh, right? And so he was a little more realistic. And anyway, John came in there. The guy was already living down. He moved in, got everything running, fixed it, put a wood stove in, got hot water in did all kinds of amazing things. And John showed up. And John was like, and I said, listen, John, you need some money? This guy's got it. And so he had the money. I just had to move in. So he waggles like, $2,800 in front of John's face, and John takes it. And so the guy stays here a month, and then it's like John's like sitting up at the end of the stairs, listening to every conversation, because the guy's running his business. He has a very interesting business. He designs controls for all kinds of things, like pumping stations and you name it, a restaurant, you name it, anything that needs to be pumped, not industrial scale, but maybe commercial scale, he does. So anyway, he works. He's not hurting for cash. So anyway, but he loves being up here, and he loves, it's just 6 miles to he's got a big factory downtown. So anyway, so John took the money, and the guy did all the stuff. Like I said, put in hot water, and, got the shower to work in the bathroom here, and got hot water in the kitchen, and, and put a wood stove downstairs. They heat the whole place, and brought in a cord of wood, right? And stuck a, internet, because he has a big internet business, and he's a provider, and so he brings isolated. I don't even know what to call it, but very secure internet. he brings into businesses. That's another part of his business. So he has his own pipe downtown, and he microwaves the stuff to all his customers, right? So he stuck a dish up on top of this place and microwaved the internet into it, right? Which gave John was getting the internet and putting his shows up on the internet over his phone, right? A hotspot. It was costing him $200 a month, right? Well, this guy did it up there for free. So all of this stuff the guy had done before John had even showed up after his little whoop-de-doo in Texas. And if he really, I have to take care of my family, well, then he would go there and take care of his family and step up. I mean, he's got, a bachelor's degree in art, a master's degree in art. He looks great on paper, right? He could get a job teaching anywhere. He could get a job teaching upstairs on the internet. And he went out to go, speak to a student. But it's too hard. But anyway, so John shows up and this guy is like, trying to bend over backwards, right? To be real. And John just screams at him and jumps and he just, and so, he makes it like he can't stay here. He can't live here, this guy, right? So I say, I think we got something even better. So I took him, Mishka was around, and Mishka really kind of wanted to sell his house here, right? Or at the least rent it, right? Because he's in Germany, right? So he was here. I introduced it to him. I facilitated it. The guy moved everything from here into Mishka's, the mainstay, right? And he left all the he left that amazing wood stove. It's still downstairs. The wood stove you saw me building a fire in. That was built by that guy. The internet he left hooked up, right? And those couches down there are his, right? And John got it for, he got X amount of cash for the guy to move in. And then he was, the next month's rent, he got all this stuff. The guy said, okay, I'll get out. I can't live here with you screaming at me all the time. My clients, when I try to talk to them on the phone, they're going, what the heck is that? And so, so he moved into Mishka's place. And then after 2 years, he bought that from him, right? And he loves it. And it eased that guy into the exact place he needed to be. Probably couldn't have happened without John throwing him out of here, right? So that's how this works, right? And so now I've been here less than 2 weeks. He's thrown me out twice, right? It's been interesting. Each time he's thrown me out, it was on a Thursday. I don't know why, but no, he threw me out yesterday. So that was, yesterday was what? Today's Wednesday, Tuesday. So Tuesday and Thursday, right? And each time he said, oh, please come back. You can stay here as long as you want, right? And me coming here, you can stay here as long as you want till May, right? I said, you sure? He said, yep. You're gonna be. I won't drink any coffee. I'll be good. Okay. But so there you got a interesting little, John, me, and this guy, right? This guy is amazing. So he's got his life. I mean, he's gonna have an easy life. He's a lot of issues and problems and family and da-da-da, but he just works on through it, right? Does his best, right? Doesn't complain, never complains, never, ever, ever, ever complains, right? Never judges, right? And, he's my patron saint, right? And then you got me, a cheeky monkey, the observer, right? And your shamanic shaman / sensei, Kriya, right? And, John Boy, right? Canary in the coal mine. So, and I don't understand the toilet. You wouldn't have believed. I really did want to take pictures, and John takes pictures of me all the time. Click, 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 click. I feel like I'm a runway model, right? And he's always, putting me on the internet, right? And he never puts any links from the shows he shoots of me onto so people would get to my channel. But you guys got here, and that's all that matters. So anyway, what have you guys been saying? Let's take a look. Let's see. You guys have been chatting up a storm here. Hey, dudes. Hey, until time. Hi. Hey, Fish. Fish? Yep. Hey, James. Amy. So, guys, you all can see each other's email address, right? So you guys can get a hold of each other without... Yeah. And like he can't understand, he thinks that Tennessee is south of here. No, North Carolina is south of here, but Tennessee is west and north. Where I am, I'm at the top part of Tennessee, so I am north of here, and this place is maybe, I don't know, 2,600 feet up in the air, right? I'm about 4,200, right? I'm almost, Mount Mitchell. Is that it, Mount Mitchell? Yeah. Mount Mitchell is maybe 6,000. I'm maybe 1,500, 1,800 lower than that. But I'm way up there, right? I'm in that Sawtooth Mountain accordion between the ridge of the Appalachian and the backside of the Blue Ridge, right? It's like when those two mountain ranges kind of geologically formed, they squeezed all the land, and I live in a super jagged Sawtooth Mountain range, and up and down, up and down, up and down, and all the roads go around, and it's a rainforest, and it's pretty. But now that all the rich people are moving in and ripping and tearing, it's like destroying the hydrology, how the water flows. So we're having a lot of problems with things getting washed out in floods, and it's not even raining half as much as it did when I first got here 20 years ago. It was a rainforest, not so much anymore, and everything was of excellence, and pretty much all the trees and all the foliage is basically dying. I mean, people, it's got leaves on it. That doesn't mean it's healthy, right? And where I'm at in the deep green, in my little two ridges, all the trees are they're poplars, and they kind of shot up like weeds, and they have nothing to support it. So the trees are growing up, and then they're getting stressed, and then they are kind of rotting from the inside out and then cracking over. And they got all kind of leaves on them if it's summertime when they fall over. But when I lived there before Colonel Sanders and the tweakers showed up with their motorcycles and four-wheelers and such, when it was quiet, and I'd be sitting on my deck, and at least once a week I'd hear crack, 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 smash, a tree falling down, right? And it's out in the middle of the forest, not bothering me, And I took all the trees that would have bothered me out. And people, you took out, I said, well, I had 500 trees, and I took 50 out. That's, Anyway, so it's obvious that the universe has something else for me to do. And by coming back here, like today, I had a really nice lunch with this old friend of mine, who's really one of the great social and artist people in this neck of the woods, right? And so she's, doing her best. But, I kind of got her into many. She was just Earth Mama. She did Earth Day, right? And she was being annoyed by all the morons, like all the boys in Plowshare, who didn't do anything but wanted to run, Earth Day, right? And she did all of the work herself, and her few friends would help her, like me. And And I did it just for fun, you know. I didn't do it for any other reason, except she's my friend. I wanted to lighten her load. So, you know, I wouldn't really get involved with any of the organizing stuff or all those people. I would come to a few of those meetings, but wouldn't say much. And, but, you know, a week or two before the show, I would just start helping her logistically, get everything all in a row, you know, I knew all the people in the parks department and all that kind of stuff. So she needed stage. I made sure there was stage there, sound system. I made sure that was there, blah, blah. Whatever she needed that the city could provide, I would facilitate it, right? And then, you know, you know, hanging this banner or doing this or doing that, I would do that. I would bring my boys and do that. So it was fun. Anyway, so I saw her, and she's gotten totally, you know, into a bunch of stuff. And, you know, a lot of things that I got rocking and rolling, you know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the inertia of those things are now coming to fruition. And so they're now putting artists on all of the city councils, you know, all the different things, the parks department and this department and that. And they're having an artist on each one to have a different point of view. And so she is being part of that. And she's getting the Black community in, you know, integrated into that too. So she's doing some great stuff, but it's like really, you know, she's pulling her, yeah, she's like, because no one's making it easy. No one's really working together. And that's because no one really cares. They just do this stuff to make themselves look groupie, right? Instead of being, you know, like her, truly involved spiritually, emotionally, physically, all the above, right? So my reason for being here is you know, I could have stayed at the Deep Green. In a lot of ways, you know, Colonel Sanders and the Tweakers are less annoying than John or even Roanoke, right? And but I saw a lot of in this last week and a half that I've been here. I've seen a number of really old good friends, right? Pete, you know, that you got a little glimpse of, you know, he's a eternal, you know, he's like, you know, somewhere in his 90s to mid hundreds, you know, and he's still, and before he used to be an unbelievable badminton, unbelievable guy, and he would fly through the air like a bird after the birdie. And one time he was flying through the air and he didn't land right. He broke his hip. He was probably in his 80s when he did that. And he hasn't quite been the same. So, and he's had an amazing life. You know, he was in the Air Force. He was, you know, astronaut, computer genius, worked for IBM, was a football player, professional NFL football player. He was a great pass receiver, and he is still really tall and really fast, and he could fly through the air. So he could like run down the field. The guy would throw it. No matter where he threw it, he could like jump up in the air like a basketball star, grab the ball, and either hit the ground running or, you know, make the catch inside the end zone, right? So he did that for 2 years. And when he was in college, it was great. You know, it was like super duper. But NFL, it was like, he wasn't making any real money. That's what he said. This is not real money. And these people are like psychotic. They're like out there to kill people. And so he did it for, you know, 1 season and a half, and then he quit, right? And so, because IBM gave him, because he was working at IBM and playing the NFL at the same time. This guy is amazing. And so he got an offer he couldn't refuse. He went and lived in California in the heyday of the 60s and 70s, and did all that, and made, you know, Silicon Valley. He made some serious bucks doing that. And then he came back. His parents got sick, and he came back to Virginia, you know, back to this neighborhood. And then he decided he saw all this great social activism in, you know, around the country, and in California, and he was going to do it here in Roanoke, and he did. He was he helped start the co-op. He helped start this nonprofit healthcare. He's helped start the gardening. We have now about 18 big community gardens. He started that off. And he started the revitalization and renaissance of downtown and Grandin, right? So that's my buddy Pete. And you saw him for a few minutes. We were going to eat, and I didn't want to, I let you see him for, I don't know, 5 minutes of our little conversation. We got into some pretty deep stuff. So I didn't want to put that on the World Wide Web. Maybe, I don't know, without his, express permission, and not like John, who just starts shooting people without, asking them or, even telling them that they're doing it. I mean, John has he said he has 100 shows with me, right? So he had been shooting me, there's about 20 or 12 shows that I can remember that we did specifically as a show, like, the Oak Crone show, the, Jimi Hendrix show, the David Bowie show, a show of Scar, and about another 10 or 12, right? That we did like that, right? And that's where I got my chops to do these, right? So, and I would have never done YouTube unless I saw John, unless John showed me on YouTube. So, but he has done nothing but obfuscate and not help really. Now, see, this is the interesting thing, because if you go look at the Jimmy birthday, the video we did on my birthday, it's my birthday, not even my birthday, but was close enough, right? And in my mind, every day is my birthday. I wake up, it's like I'm being reborn. I'm talking born again. Well, I do that at least 15 times a day, getting reborn, right? So, but that video is so sweet. That's the sweet side of John, right? And if he could just let that be who he is, he'd be unstoppable, because he would be that and not worrying about how to pay his bills. And he doesn't have to. His parents got more money than they need, and he's going to definitely get it. He could, they tried to get him into their business and show him the ropes and let him do it, but he saw it as like his daddy telling him what to do, right? Well, I know his parents. They're not terrible, mean people. They just want him to be happy and have a life that he doesn't have to. That's why they give him so much cash, right? Now, I don't know how good that is, but it is what it is, right? And that's John. He is this canary in the coal mine. He is this representation of not everything terrible, but a lot of great stuff, right? And I've just learned over the years that, first of all, I've been very blessed. I have amazing teachers, stumble into amazing situations constantly, right? And as long as I go with the flow and serve love's co-creation, everything works out. Today, I mean, my car was like really fucked up. I could have been totally tweaking about it, but I didn't. I persevered. I did my best. I went first to the guys who they rotated my tires, and then my car was about to fall apart after they did that. They did something fucked up. So they did all these other things that would have cost me a lot more money. Like they balanced all my tires. They put a new control rod in. They did all kinds of shit that they didn't charge me for. But then it still was fucked up. And they said, oh, it'll get better, right? They just wanted me to go, right? So I drove to this other mechanic I knew, who's a great mechanic. And I saw his partner, and this guy was like, I'm so overworked. I can't touch your car for another 7 months. And I said, okay, relax, breathe. And then I said, so where's Ernie? Well, I don't know where he is. He's not here. And I turned around, and he drives in, right? And Ernie's the calm one. And he's more this guy is the guy who fixes everything, right? But Ernie's the guy who's like the mystic mechanic. He can put his hand on your car and tell you what's wrong with your carburetor or your transmission or any of the above, right? And he's always right. So I said, he came in, he brought his soup. Oh, he goes, well, look, you're still up the grid. I said, yep. I said, yeah, you're doing a great job. And so he goes, I watch your YouTubes all the time. I said, good, good, good. This guy's like in his 70s, right? He's been a zillion different things. Until he runs this, he had the money, and his partner is, Mr. Grease. And what he does, Mr. Grease goes and finds young men who would either end up dead or in jail or some, real losers, but they like cars, right? So he says, okay, instead of stealing them and cutting them, here, let me teach you how to fix them. So he always has a big crew of these young, and not just guys, he's got a couple girls in there too, who are, born to be greasy, right? And love doing auto work, right? And so he just runs around and makes sure they're doing the right thing, kind of what I did as an electrician. And that guy and I talked about that a lot. And so he's, anyway. So my friend, who just came back from getting himself a thing of soup, I said, so I want you to just listen to my car as it rolls through your parking lot. And he goes, okay. So he gets up and he stands at the other end, and I just kind of, drive at him at about 2 miles an hour. And he's watching. He's like, he moves a little bit over this way. He looks at this and moves a little over there, looks over there. And then, he goes, okay, that's it. He goes, well, you either have, an axle problem in the rear, or you have all the like ball bearing things that have it roll around easy, that might be broken, or like you said, they rotated your tires. They might have done something inappropriate when they did that. I said, okay. I went over, he goes, but you need to go over and see my friend Charlie over here, and he is Mr. Wheel. I'm Mr. Car, he's Mr. Wheel. He'll be able to do it, so you tell him what I think it is. And I said, okay. So I go over to see him, and he goes, well, what you need to do is go back to the guys who rotated your tires and have them take them up again and put them back on and find, who is this? I tell him where it is. He says, get Larry to help you. He is their best. He's a guy who's like me. He's like, our friends over there. And so you get him to do that, and he will probably be able to easily see what went wrong and just take care of it. And he did. I went in, and I didn't go to the main desk. I went into where his, thing, and he's like central command, all the mechanics working on, he's like, he looks everything up on the computer and says, see, you got to do it this way and that way. And, let's watch this YouTube. And anyway, so I go to him and say, listen, you guys did this. He goes, yes, I know. But we put it, we rebalanced all of your tires. We put that rod in, what more? I said, no. What you didn't do is you didn't check how they put the tires back on. And he goes, okay. So I'll come out. And I said, what I want you to do is, the boys over there. Oh, yeah. I said, that guy, he looked at the car rolling down, and he said, that back tire there is wobbling, so there's something really seriously wrong. So he comes out and looks at it, he goes, yep, there's something seriously wrong. He goes and gets like his super duper thing to take the lug nuts off, and a jack. Not putting it up in the air, but a jack. And so he jacks that up, and he takes it off. He kind of sets it, puts it back, and there's one lug nut missing. So he goes and gets a lug nut from my car, puts on, then he goes to the other one. He takes that off, and he does the same thing to it, and he tightens it up, and the noise is totally gone, and the car runs like a bowling ball, right? So if I gotten totally whacked out about it, the car, I would have probably thrown it off a cliff, right? But I didn't. I went from one guy to the next guy to the next guy to the next guy, until I figured out I could see what was wrong with it, and then explained to the guy who needed to fix it what was wrong with it. And then I took him out to his own parking lot and drove the car so he could see what that other guy could see, which he could. And then he simply got a jack and the right tool and there's one lug not missing. And I'm sure that's what kind of made it go a little out of balance. So anyway, he picks it up, and so far the car is run very smoothly. So, but that's a lesson more in not freaking out, more in letting God take over. God's not my co-pilot. Love's co-creation is my pilot, and Jesus is my co-pilot, and I'm just there as a steward, for sandwiches and tea, So what else we got to say here, kids? Let's see. Finish Russian girl visit story, please. Okay, I can do that. So this is the first time John throws me out. I've been here about a year and a bit, and I've taken off on my own to do other things, right? But I've been here helping him get shit together. Every time we work it out, and we find the right, like the insurance for the place, and the this for the place, and the that for the place, right? And he says, basically, he probably put an easy 50 grand into this place to fix it up, right? But he didn't drive the nails. He didn't do any of the above. And when he did, it's like he got these windows from Habitat, right? Instead of putting the way they're designed to go up and down, and they're spring loaded, right? He put them sideways this way. So he liked better seeing the window open. But you do that, and the window goes here, it falls out, right? It's not designed to go side, and it doesn't. This way, he's got one doing it. It's like magic. It goes up by itself. And anyway, so it's like winter's time when he says, "I've got a Russian bride coming." Right? He's like mail order, just like he gets everything from. Kroger's delivers all the food, and Amazon brings him all his whatever stuff, right? His socks, his hot pants, his whatever. And so he basically says, "Okay, I'm going to get this mail order bride from Russia." Really? Yes. I need a woman. Okay. So he drives to, I take him there once. He tells me about it, and he wants, we drive down there together. And for some reason, she wasn't there. Either he got the wrong time or wrong date or whatever. But we get there, and he realizes that, but at least he sees how to do it. That's not a big problem. You just take 220 all the way down into Richmond, and then there's this road that goes straight to Ronald Reagan International Airport. Anyway, so he now knows how to get there, as we've driven there. And a week or so later, he goes to get her. And this is probably in January, and this is when we had the polar vortex, right? And so it was pretty nippy. And I had the fireplaces going and candles. And like I said, I made this amazing meal, stuffed chicken and all kinds of vegetables and rice and potatoes and salad and cheese. And I just macked up wines and got 2 desserts. Went to my favorite bakery and got some really yummy things. And she makes these amazing eclairs and Napoleons, right? And this chocolate cake to die for. And then I went over to my other baker friend who makes great, amazing, what do you call those things? The French, not eclairs, but the bread, the really crusty, beautiful, what is those things? Baguettes? No. What are those things? They look like half moons. Anyway, I had them, and that table, nice round with a tablecloth and nice china and silverware. And they drive in, and I go and meet them, and I have taken some dark just like stuff, and made it look like I have a little mustache here because everything's white. I have this little blackness here, and I slicked back. I had a little more hair, not much more. Slicked it all back, had it in a ponytail, and had a white jacket on, and I had I was, got a tray. I was their, Cardi's there, the server, right? So I bring them in, and I have it all toasty, and I have to bring them downstairs where the fire is. I got all the food ready down there. They arrive, set them down. I put out, some cheese and bread and fresh real butter and coffee and wine. And she's just like, because she hadn't eaten anything like 48 hours, right? John wouldn't stop to get her a cheeseburger. Just cheeseburger on road, please. Hungry. So, and so she's, and John is like, because this girl is actually eating food and enjoying it instead of binging it. She's just like, right? So, then she's kind of somewhat satiated, and then I bring out a salad, and she eats that. Oh, that dressing is divine. And, okay. And so I bring I had sherbet to clear their palate, and I give her a little bowl of that, and a little glass of lemon jello, an Italian liqueur, to clear your throat for the main meal. And I bring out a soup, and then I bring out a pasta, and I have a fish. Then the main course of the stuffed chicken and the vegetables and croissants. That's what I had. Croissants. And again, fresh butter and cheese, right? And then the desserts, right? And then I had this little basket of kind of candied pastries that my friend makes, who makes the great eclairs. They're like little eclairs, but they're more like candies. So they're really special. Beyond her eclairs are like to die for, right? Just orgasmic, right? And this girl is actually having orgasms as she's eating. She's just like, oh yes, this is so good. Oh, no, it's just so. And we're talking about art and physics, and she's like a theorist. She's a philosopher and a theologian, and we're having great conversation. And John's just like, right? And so, anyway, at around 10, they got here around dark 30, and around 10 or so after the meal has been consumed, and we have talked and drank and had a beautiful evening. I have this little basket that has a bottle of sparkling cooled wine, kind of like champagne, but a little more robust, and these unbelievable, yummy pastries and some fruits, and some more cheese, and some more, croissants, right? And covered them up with a nice little, table, little napkin-y things, and little plates and knives, and I send them up those stairs into heaven, right? And I go to sleep, right? And I get, John, he doesn't even knock, just busted, get out, get out, get out, get out. And she's got hair on her pussy and hair on her, and she farts and she smells, and she doesn't have her body shaved. She wanted to do things I've always dreamt about, but I couldn't do it. I can't fornicate. Anyway, so I go out to, he could, so I'm going to pack up all my stuff into the car and get out, right? And he's just standing over me with his hammer in his hand. Get out, get out. And I the first time I walk out to open up my car and start putting things in it, this girl's there, like, she's got 3 cigarettes in her hand. She's totally naked, and she's wearing this unbelievable mink coat, like from the top of her head to her feet, just silk on the inside, and it's this kind of hood, and I should never come. He said, I can't believe it. I just get and she goes, you have any more food? I said, yeah, there's a ton in the fridge. eat anything you want. I'm out of here. Can I come with you? I said, nope. He would get quite upset if I took you away naked in a mink coat. He took all my clothes. I can't leave. And she just said, and she's smoking 3 cigarettes. I mean, I'm literally 3 cigarettes. And and she has no makeup on now. She's just, and her hair is not as perfect as it was, but she's still quite attractive. Her frame is quite nice. She's probably in her 30s. She's probably maybe 5 to 10 years younger than John. And she is a smart cookie. I mean, she has a PhD in theology, right? Hard to get when you're in Russia, too. Well, not really, not now. Yeah. And we were talking about Greek Orthodox religion, and she was, you know about this? I said, oh, yes. And we started talking about and he goes, sacrilegious, God and Jesus, So I left, right? And I had no real money. I had like $60 in my pocket. It was like unbelievably cold, almost as cold as it was this Christmas. It was like this, the Nordic vortex had come down. And that's when John threw me out, right? I mean, it's really freaking cold. Everything was iced completely. And luckily, and there was no rain or precipitation. Otherwise, I would never be able to leave. Because last February, I got stuck here for 3 weeks because we had, first we had snow, and then we had rain, and then it got a little warm, and then it started to sleet, and then got super cold, and we got 2 inches of ice. And the electric went out. Luckily, they got it back on. Luckily, it was nothing here, nothing on this hill went out. But the juice went off for an hour or 2, and then it came back on, and then didn't go off. But I had already stocked up all the fireplaces ready for the thing. This is last February, and I stayed here 3 weeks cooking and fixing and keeping all the fires, keeping the place warm. And John had the heat pump on and about 15 electric space heaters on upstairs, so he could run around in his shorts, and barefoot. He comes down here barefoot and says, "Oh, it's so cold." I say, "Yeah, wear shoes, wear pants, So anyway, so I drove away down the hill, made it down the hill, and then made it down onto the paved road. And I said, where am I going to go? I go, look, I have a full tank of gas. I think I'm going to go up to visit my friends up in West Virginia. And so I decided to do that. And because I called up other people here closer at home, and nobody answered the phone, the folks who had the farms up there at Floyd with Homie, they didn't answer the phone, and I don't just like to show up, and I want to give people total, okay, I want to spend 4 days with you, 5 days maybe, and the same with John, John, I say, John, I'll come up here, I'll help you out, and I won't stay more than, 4 or 5 days, right? And he throws me out after 3, right? And then he begs me to come back, and you can say, oh, you all went too long, as long as you want, right? And then, 3 days later, he throws me out again. And, I know he's doing that, so I'm kind of ready to go at a moment's notice. And not a big deal. Even now, even though I unloaded half the car because he wanted me to take him to get his car. And so I, why are you taking all the stuff out? Why are you taking all? I said, John, because you asked me to drive you to get your car. And it's full of stuff, meaning you either sit on the roof or, I take some of the stuff out, and as easy as it takes out, it'll go back in, right? And so that's how I left here when the Russian girl was here, and I left her, naked in a mink coat. I mean, I should have taken some pictures of that one or a video, but I wasn't up to speed. I didn't have a phone that did any of that, right? So anyway, I had a flip phone at the time. Anyway, so I drive up to West Virginia. I go up 220, and that's the shortest way to get to my friends up there. And I go by Beckley, and there's right on the border of West Virginia where 66 and 220 come together. It's about maybe 40 miles outside of Roanoke, right? Anyway, so I get up there, and right where those two things come together, there is a great diner, a really great, one of my favorite great diners, right? And big truck stop, and it's always, you can stay there forever. It's got good Wi-Fi, free phones, back in the day when truckers had to call in. And so anyway, I went up there, and I park, and I'm walking, and there's this girl sitting by the front entrance, and she's wearing nice clothes, nice shoes, nice pants, nice coat, nice shirt, nice hat, all North Face, all that, every bit of her clothes probably cost, $400 or $500, right? Her shoes probably cost $200 above that. Anyway, and she's spare changing it, right? And so now I got $60. I have pretty much a full tank of gas, and so I stop, and I look down at her, and she kind of holds her little hand up. I go, "Have you had breakfast yet?" And she goes, "No, I'm starving." I said, "Well, let me buy you breakfast. Can you tell me a story?" So I bring her in there, and we get, and she eats up a storm, right? So I have an omelet and coffee, and they make very nice pancakes there, really thin with blueberries, and the edges are crisp. Really, my favorite. Top 5 pancakes, and they have whipped cream too that they whip themselves, not out of a can. Anyway, so we had breakfast, and she has like 3 of them, and her story is, so she comes from a pretty well-to-do family. Daddy's a doctor, mommy's a lawyer. They live in Atlanta. She went to, Sarah Lauren or some, fancy schmancy place like that. And she studied environmental science, right? Or sustainability or something really useless like that. And so I listened to her story, and she goes, and so, I finished my degree, bachelor's degree, and I expected to be able to go to a corporation and get a nice $70,000 job right off the bat. And they looked at me and laughed. And I said, what? And she goes, well, you didn't do any internships. You had 4 years in college. Each of those summers, you should have come and interned with us. And by the time you graduated, Sarah Lawrence, we would have trained you to be the employee we want you to be. But no, forget it. Go get lost. Go to graduate school, right? And then, start being an intern here. We'll give you a job. Anyway, so she didn't want to do that. So she tried a few months, and everyone just said no. So she had a job being working at Starbucks, right? Her $300,000 education, and because every summer she went, traveled, to expand her mind, which is not a bad thing, but not on a tour. Go live someplace for a while. All the countries I ever visited, I was there for months on end, and I learned their language. I lived not in a fancy hotel or a fancy neighborhood or even a subdivide. I lived like in the ghetto, the cheapest place I can find, I'd live there. But that's where the great shops were, the great stores, the great markets, especially in places like Italy and France. And Brussels and Sweden and Denmark and where else? England, Ireland, all those. I lived in all those places for months on end. Australia, years on end. So I'm talking to this girl, listen to her story, and she decides that, okay, I'll probably have to go back to grad school, and I'll probably have to, start doing these internships, but I want to have my last hurrah. And so her other tweaker rich friends that she went to prep school with, went to other, Duke and Brown and places like that, UNC, and they all decided that they all were in the same thing. They all, summers were theirs and they didn't work and they didn't internship. And so none of them got the job they wanted to. So they knew they'd probably have to, do something they didn't want to do for the rest of their life. So they basically said, we're going to have an adventure. So they decided to get on the AT, the Appalachian Trail. It starts kind of around Atlanta and go up to Maine, right? And they started around, August. And they did not get, they didn't get any further than, Virginia, border of Virginia and West Virginia, right? They probably hiked up 300 miles, right? Well, the Appalachian Trail is probably a good 2,000 miles, no, 1,800 miles maybe, because it kind of goes sideways and jiggles this way and that. Anyway, so I basically listening to this whole thing. I said, so where are you now? She goes, well, I'm the one who could. I hitchhiked here, and I'm just spare change to get money to buy food. I said, okay, that sounds interesting. So I said, my car has everything. It's the magic car, right? And it has everything, you might need to survive, or build a city. I got it all in the car. And that's why my car is kind of breaking. It's because I got too much shit in it, right? And so I took the heavy things out, which were mostly food, that I brought in to make for John. But he was. You saw him. He was ready to throw me out right now, right? And he when I first got, he goes, "Oh, you look so tired. You look so haggard. You look so. Oh, you suffered so much. Oh, it's so terrible." And now he wants to throw me out. You're making me anxious, Right? So, I say, okay, so where's the rest of your gang? So, well, we're out in the forest and we found a log cabin and we're there. And it's got a fireplace and it's a little messy. People have been partying in it. So, okay, take me to it. So she drives me, and I drive her up to where this place is. It's probably about 20, not even, but it's like straight up into the hills, not along the highway, but, you go down the highway, go down the road about 2 miles and turn on this county road. You go on that about 5 miles and turn on a farm road, and go on that about 6 miles, hit a forest road, and then you go on that about 10 miles, and there you are. And so we go in there, and this thing has got to be like a revolutionary time. I mean, it's a straight up log cabin, all of everything's out of stone. It's like the fireplace is beautiful out of stone. It's all laid stone, and which is a Appalachian style of masonry. Anyway, and all the chinking has blown out, so it's like a wind tunnel. It's like right. And I go there, and she goes, "Here, I brought this guy. He's going to help us." And I go, "How long have you guys been here?" "Oh, 2 days." I said, 2 days? You don't even have a fire burning. "Well, we can't. We have to go to Lowe's and get wood." I said, "You're in the middle of a forest." So I took him out. I said, "It's all over that floor." "Where's the floor?" "It's the floor of the forest." "There's the floor in the forest?" These guys are college educated, high, grade A schools, right? Anyway, I said, yes. Just go over there, see all those big branches, drag them over here. Make a big pile of wood over here, right? So they did. And this place had 2 big trees, right? And it's obviously that you put the tree, the limb that you got there in between these 2 trees, and then push it, and it breaks it, right? And so so they start doing that, and then I take the others. There was about 3 guys, 4 girls, right? So that's 7, right? And so about 4 of them are doing that with the wood, and the girl who's doing that is like way more of a guy than they are. That's for sure. And so the other girls, I gather, and I say, okay, let's unload my car. First of all, let's clean up inside the cabin. So I want you to just, see this cardboard? Use this like a broom. Just push all the stuff towards the fireplace, right? Everything. Just move it over there, right? Just clear out all this. See this counter, right? So let's clean that off, right? And it had one of those like hand pump Jimmy pumps, right? So I go, I know it's cold, but there's a stream out there, right? Go take this bucket and fill it up and bring it here, right? So how this pump works is that, I don't know if you've ever seen these things. So they got the well right there in the house, right there in the kitchen, right? Goes straight down there, right? And the top of it is kind of hollow, right? Like you can pour water down this thing, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? So you basically take a bucket of water, pour it down there, and then start doing this, and it causes the suction to prime the pump to push the water up. And wouldn't you believe it? The sucker fucking works, right? So water comes by. Okay, so take this bucket, fill it up with this water, and take that water over to, and they had a gigantic fireplace, and it had this cast iron arm with a big cast iron pot, right? So, okay, we're going to take 2 or 3 of these buckets of water and fill it in, and we're going to first start a fire. How are they doing with the wood? And so we go out there, and they dragged a good chunk of wood, and so there are limbs that aren't really, that are like about this big. So I have them break them up, right? And then they're big ones that they put between the 2 trees, and 2 guys push, and then cracks, right? And so we do that. And I said, just break them off into 2 to 4 foot chunks, right? And when it does that, here's a box that we got in here. And when you do that, the bark is going to crack off. All the bark you put in the box, and then go out you take this other box here, go out in the woods and pick up as much of that bark that's on the ground that you can, that's not frozen down. And it hadn't rained yet. The forest was still relatively dry, even though it was ridiculously cold. So they're doing that. And so the rest of the gang I bring back in, and we start a fire. We take the water, we put it in that big copper pot and push it under the fire, and it's heating up that stuff. So we start, and there's dishes, there's all kinds of stuff laying around this place. So we put it all in the sink, we start cleaning it up. I open up a thing, there's some actual detergent, stuff to clean with. There's brushes and this TLC stuff, this very interesting kind of powdery soap, but it's not soap. It causes dirt to come out of whatever porous anything it is. You sprinkle it on there, and it's really great for cleaning floors, right? And so, anyway, we put the hot water on the floor. We put the stuff on top of that. We scrub the floor. We push all of it over to the side, and I make a puddle of muddy kind of stuff. And I say, okay, all of the candy wrappers, all of the paper, all of that kind of stuff, pick up, take it over, and mush it in that muddy stuff over there, right? And so they go and do that. And I say, now I go into my car, I bring my box of tools, and I have all these crappy screwdrivers. And I said, okay, so you're going to pick up some of this stuff, stick it into the crack between the logs, and then jam it further in with a screwdriver, right? So they do that. And these kids are really, amazingly, for rich, snooty, entitled individuals, are actually doing well at working together and obeying instructions, right? Because I realize within the first 40 minutes, we have done more than they've done there for 2 days. They've just been sitting there shivering, right? Thinking they're going to die. And one girl who was sane enough to, walk and get herself to the diner was the one they sent out. And she was the prettiest of us, so thinking that she could make some money off that. So anyway, we do that. And so by 2 hours, the people outside have gathered a ton of wood, and they've started to break it up and do a really good job and collect. So they're making inside. I said, okay, so we start dragging the stuff up. We're going to fill this whole wall we have chinked this whole wall, so now the wind isn't coming through. We're now going to cover it up with all the wood we're going to burn, right? And so they do that. There's piles of kindling, there's piles of meat, wood this big, wood this big, wood this big, And the big long things, because this fireplace is so gigantic, you could stick a 6-foot, tree in there and it would, you could burn, right? So anyway, so we're doing all this. And we've cleaned up the kitchen. I've had to go bring all of the stuff that I have, all the canned food. I have a lot of canned food. I always have canned food. And I only have canned food like the pop top, right? So you don't even need a can opener. And so that, and I had some bowls and all kinds of, cooking, frying pans and things of that nature, right? And there's a stand, meaning a thing, you build a fire and you put this metal thing over it and it's got a rack. You can put frying pans and shit like that on top of it, right? So this place is set. And so we have totally chinked it. So now the wind isn't blowing through it. And I fixed the door so it actually closes and it kind of seals the whole thing, right? And we get the fire going, and before you know it, it's like set. And I have a thermometer, right? Outdoor thermometer. I, have one in my car, and I always have one. And so I take the thermometer, put it on the ledge in the kitchen, and it gets up to, the thing is 70 degrees inside of this little cabin, and we are happy as a clam, right? And so we find some furniture that's in this other, it's not a storeroom, but it's a, Appalachian houses. They would build one, and then they'd build another one. And they'd have a breezeway, and then they had a place in the back where they would put stuff, right? So it was beds and mattresses and chairs and a couch. So we dragged those into a place, a couch and the beds and a mattress. Yeah, they were very funky, but if you slept in your clothes, it wasn't that a big deal. And they weren't that funky. I mean, they weren't like icky. They were just old and funky, right? Anyway, so we have, I make a great, amazing meal, and I cook it in that big pot. Once we boiled up the water and put a couple buckets of warm water, and there were 2 metal buckets, so I just put water in them and put them by the fire, right? And anyway, so I made this amazing kind of lasagna inside this brass pot or metal pot, or I don't know what metal it was, but anyway, it wasn't that. It cleaned out well, and so we had this great meal. I actually had some nice bread and some cheese and a couple bottles of wine, and these kids are like unbelievably happy. They're just like, this is amazing. This is like the best part of our trip so far. I said, this is all stuff. I hope you've gotten into your head that you can do things. You don't have to go to Lowe's. You don't have to hire somebody to do it. You can do this. I know, this was so much fun. Whereas John, this is terrible. I have to work so hard, 18 hours a day, every day. I'm like, he doesn't really give me a break. So, but these kids enjoyed doing that. It was like something they never experienced, working together and having this amazing outcome instead of having people hand it to them, right? So anyway, so we have, that. And the one thing one of these kids did have was some booze. He had some herb. So we were smoking, and we were drinking the wine and eating this great lasagna and eating good bread with cheese. Living like a millionaire on the 23 cents he raised spare changing, right? Anyway, so that's kind of fun. So it's warm, it's nice. This is way nicer than, John's. And there's 4 nice girls and 3 boys, right? And the boys actually like each other better than the girls. The girls have just been their friends since their grammar school and the prep school. So they're tight, They're all girls, basically. The fluid gender thing, or gender fluid, however it goes, right? Anyway, so we're feeling no harm, and we're all puddled up in the evening, and we just have a great old time, and fall asleep amongst each other, and wake up with the sun. And I said, well, to keep it just toasty, we're going to go get more wood, and my car has limited. That was a great meal, but I burnt through a fifth of the food I have. So we're going to stay here anytime. We're going to go look in the forest for stuff to eat. And they go, what? You can eat? I said, yes. Even in the winter, there are things you can go forage and eat. How do you think the Indians survived? And they'll go, I don't know. Anyway, so I show them what to look for. And you guys go that. And it's a beautiful sunny day. There's nobody around. It's so open of a forest, meaning no one can hide really. And so, I said, who wants to go forage? Take one of those cardboard boxes on the inside. So we didn't burn any cardboard boxes because that's what instead of having baskets to carry stuff, cardboard boxes. That's why I love cardboard boxes, right? So, half of them go off looking for forage, 2 by 2. And the other 3, one guy and 2 girls who were like more muscular than anybody else, we go dragging big logs, big falling down trees and breaking off and they're really getting into the fact that, I show them the kinetic geometry of breaking things. And it's pretty easy when you're, fulcrum. Give me a fulcrum, I can move the world, right? So we're doing that. And, I'm still pretty beat up. So I have my little folding chair, which acts like a cane. So I kind of hobble. And then I open up the chair and sit down and say, okay, you do that, go there. You two grab this and do that. And we're doing this. And I'm, orchestrating, and they're having a great old time, right? And they're laughing, and they're kidding, and they're just, just amazed that they thought they were going to die 3 days ago, and they were so depressed. Only one could get enough gumption to get up and go out and get something. Anyway, and now they got this like Caribbean hotspot, and so we're working along. And so I said, okay, and I know something over there, right? And so I say, okay, you guys kind of now go just clear out from here back to the cabin of all the small, go get some more cardboard boxes and all the limbs and twigs and, kindling kind of stuff. And bark. Remember the bark. Bark starts fires really well. It's like gasoline. So they're doing that, and I said, oh, no, I'm going to go look over here, see if I can find a better stash of food and stuff. And so I kind of start going the long way around to where I was going, and I come up behind these 6 guys, right? Again, 4 guys, 2 girls, and they're all in 100% U.S. military camo European soldier gear, right? And they have backpacks, and they're carrying their guns, right? And anyway, so I kind of come up sideways to them and then say, hey, how you doing? And they've been hiding. They've been observing us, right? I kind of been watching them observe us for about an hour. I said, so what division are you guys from? And where did you just get deployed from? And so they said, well, we had been deployed, each of us, we were in basic together. We all went to high school together. 9/11 happened, and we joined the military, and we have been, deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq at least 6 times, and was, we had been at it for almost 12 years, and and we just broke. We kept saying we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't, and they deploy us. We can't do this. We need to deploy, and then they had an incident, and then they got summarily, dishonorably discharged. So no VA for them, no college for them, no anything for them. And when they went back to Little Town, they were, disgraced their community, turned their back on them, so they just went into the woods and did what they knew how to do, and that was to survive. And I said, okay, this is great. And I said, didn't you see us in that cabin? And they said, yes. I said, why wouldn't you come and knock on the door? Well, we didn't want to. And I said, okay, not a problem. I have food. I said, well, we have some food too. We have, our military food, and we got other stuff, and we've been foraging too. You have? How good? Well, we're very good at. Oh, good. So I said, come on, guys, we're going to go have brunch. So by that time, when I got back, I ran into the kids who were collecting, wood in boxes and dumping it over in the corner, and had a gigantic pile of like almost trees out by the 2 trees to crack them in half, and the kids who were foraging stuff have their little cardboard boxes full of stuff, right? And they're giggling; they can't believe that they found all this stuff. And so, everyone comes in, and it's like toasty woasty inside. And the soldiers come in. I said, guys, crack down, relax, right? So they do, right? They take off their packs, they take off their coats, they get down to their, just comfies, and everyone's getting to know each other. And these guys, the soldier boys, the one thing they do have is coffee. Really good coffee. That was the one thing they kind of splurged on when they went into the forest. And the girls were so happy to meet, 4 other girls. And so they were talking. So they kind of split off, and the boys kind of split off, and they were all, and it was great to see the rich college kids ask the soldier kids, so what's it like, and what did you do? And they were like doing an amazing job of, debriefing these kids out of their trauma. I mean, not 100%, but it was a benchmark period for both this group of kids, because the soldier kids were a little bit older than the college kids, right? And the soldier kids came from basically poor families, right? White poor families. And it was kind of like, one of the West Virginia coal towns that, crapped out, and, and these guys, the only thing they could choose was, go into the army. So anyway, they're really hitting it off amazingly well, right? So we make another nice, great meal, and so we make bedding arrangements a little more for everybody, and the soldier boys have hammocks, and girls have hammocks. They have a lot of really great stuff. They had these great chainsaws, right? Like without a motor that you pull, like zing, 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 zing. And they could cut trees down with these things, right? They sharpen those sucks up to like you couldn't believe. So, that afternoon, we filled up half of that place with wood. Like we had a good 4 or 5 days worth of wood, right? So, it's, we have our brunch. We just kick back. One of the guys has a radio, a multi-band radio. Every channel you could want on the radio, right? And military grade digital. You could listen to anything around the world, right? And so we started listening to stuff from Europe and soccer matches and college football and basketball, and we just whatever draws everyone's attention for however long it is, we listen to it. And so we just having a great time. And we're making coffee, and these guys are amazing at making coffee, right? So that's their major job. And everyone's doing everything. Not this is my job, that's your job. No, everyone, because a lot of the kids. So how'd you make this coffee? Would you have no percolator, no, steam thing? How did you, And so they showed them how to do billy, So it's going great. The sun goes down, and there's one window in this whole place, and that's kind of facing where the sun goes down. It's like where the kitchen sink is, due west. So the sun just comes in, and it's leaded glass, so it's like rainbows everywhere. And it's just like everyone is going, this is the best moment of my freaking life, right? And one of the soldier boys has a harmonica. He takes it out and starts playing it. Another one of the soldier girls has a little squeeze box, an accordion. I mean, teeny weeny squeeze box, right? She takes that out and she starts. And one of the college kids is a drummer boy. And so he starts hitting the pots and pans with, sticks. And they're actually making some pretty good music, right? And they all like jazz. And they're doing down home, West Virginia jazzy kind of music, which is almost hip hop. And when John is constantly, defragging, those white, those rednecks, well, there are people who are richer than John could ever think of being rich, right? And the military kids poorer than, right? And they were of every kind of flavor class other than, color, There were no Chinese guys there, no black folk there, but all white of different. See, there are different flavors of white people, right? So anyway, we have all of that, and they're getting along great. And each one of these kids, the soldier kids and the college kids, have all had their own traumas. I was talking to a friend the other day, a shrinky friend of mine, and he's one of my best friends is married to an associate of his, and her husband is a total whack job, right? A shrink. And that's why I left the shrinky world, because most shrinks are whack jobs. And so this guy, though, who I was talking to, is really, really solid guy, really smart, he's done a great thing for me, because I met him. He's an amazing musician. He does taekwondo. He does, all of the other tai chi, qigong, all of that. And so I took a couple. That's how I met him. I took a couple of his classes, and he's working at VA as a shrink, and I worked at a VA as a psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. And so we really bonded on that. So we've been buds ever since. And his practice is like, he is high end, like you can't believe, like $300 an hour, right? And he really does. I mean, he doesn't get paid that to be, and he does really. I don't know if he even gets paid to be here. He just does it as a thing. Anyway, we were talking. He took me out to lunch. So I had about 5 of my friends take me out to lunch in the last week and a half. That's what they do. They take me out to lunch. And so they basically, he and I had this conversation about what is crazy, right? And I said that, there is no, the DSM is a joke. When I started using the DSM, the thing that describes, psychological whoopee-doo, problems, it's now book 5. When I was practicing, they didn't have it was just a DSM, right? Or whatever 3 letters it is. I know it starts with a D. But anyway, so we were discussing, and I said, I really think that everyone is fucked up, and we're all, because we're all our relations, we're on this scale, right? We're located somewhere here. You know, this way you're psychotic, this way you're neurotic, this way you're this way a little bit of that. And that's what it is. There isn't any specific thing, so you can't just give somebody a pill for it, right? It's a deep, and he knows. I mean, my shrinky friend, he's totally on board with it. So, and we were discussing it because we both agree on this, and we were trying to find a nice way to describe it because he's a guy who writes things and gets published in real prestigious journals. That's why he takes me out to lunch. He kind of pumps me for ideas. We flesh them out. He writes them. He reads it to me. We have another lunch and talk about it and drink more wine, and there we go. So that's what these kids were. They were, three guys, four girls of the college kids, and four guys and two girls of the army guys. So that's, what's that? That's 6 and 7. So that's 12, 13. Lucky 13, right? Somewhere around there. And they just amalgamed, and their best parts of all of them came out. And it was truly just one of those amazingly enjoyable moments, right? And this all happened because John threw me out because he was freaked out over the Russian girl's pussy hair and armpit hair, and that she smelled, right, like a human being, right? And she didn't, he was really bent out of shape that when she took a shit, she didn't, wipe her ass with a roll and a half of toilet paper because in Russia, that's, when I was in Yugoslavia during the '84 Olympics, and, my publisher sent me over to take pictures. I said, why are you sending me? I'm going to go to the Olympics. I'm not going to shoot pictures of people running around. He goes, no. You just do your thing. Pictures of people. Go talk to them. Go get it into, do your thing. So I did. So that's how I went to Yugoslavia for the Olympics. So I went a month early just to get pictures of people preparing for the Olympics. And then when the Olympics was, I was partying with other people. I'm taking pictures of them partying, not the Olympics. And then I stayed another month and went out because once I got to know the people in Sarajevo, I had a bunch of really good friends. I'd been there almost a month and a half. And after the Olympics left town, everything's it's like air going out of a balloon. So a number of them said, hey, you want to go to the country? Want to meet my parents? They'd love to meet you, and I know a girl for you, I got a lot of that. And so, I went and hung with those folks, and then I came back. And so, but my one experience when I was staying in Sarajevo, this hotel, before I started staying with people, the freaking bathroom in that thing was so palatial. It was bigger than my apartment in the Lower East Side, And so I go to this amazing, bathroom, and I cut a loaf, and I go look for toilet paper, and there are 6 squares laid out on this little table next to the toilet, right? So I use them all up, and then I call up down to the desk. I said, "Hey, there's only 6 squares of toilet paper." It was like sandpaper. It was like not the soft. It wasn't Charmin. And and the lady said, "Listen, that was your supply for the week." I said, "What? There's 7 days in a week." So, well, you could go to a restaurant, And she goes, "And if you use the towels, we'll know, right?" So where do I get toilet paper? Go to the black market. You can find toilet paper there, any kind you want. So I did. It cost me $20 a roll of toilet paper, right? Okay, I'm going to set you guys down for a second because I have to get up. Because if I don't get up now, I'll be stuck on this couch for the evening. I got to move. So John, gets anxious going down below to put the garbage in the garbage. Right. So this is just the toilet paper that he's using. I mean, see all of these things that are open, he's used up a couple of them, right? And the whole time I've been here, this is all I've used. I've used this roll, right? And instead of putting the toilet paper down the toilet, where I live, you can't do that. And so when it was so popped up, I put the toilet paper in there, right? And I burn it, right? So paper towels, he's got a ton of those. He goes through one of those like a week. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And so that was the interesting thing in the little cabin, because you had to just go outside, and there was a hole in the ground. The outhouse had fallen down. So here's so either I have things in garbage bags, those are great suitcases, but see how I use cardboard boxes, and they're great to, like, you can organize things this way, right? So, and so I took all this stuff out so John can get in my car when I take him down to get his car. But if he throws me out tomorrow, I can't do that. I'll just have to pack this up and take it. But so that's like, I recycle. Let's see. I'll show you. I said, this place belongs in a museum. So here I have, meals already prepared in these plastic bags, right? And I left for John to eat. And what did he eat? He ate bags of nachos, cheese. Right. So the kids from college were in that same situation, They were, had everything given to them. And the greatest experience they had was being out there close to death. And they ran into me. And I showed them how easy it was to survive, right? So there's nothing wrong with getting nice things to eat at the supermarket, but you don't need it. It's okay. But if that's all you do, you end up like I did, working 15 years for desperate corporate lawyers, make a lot of money, and then dying of obesity, right? So we have a great, again, we have a great evening, we have a great bunch, and then we make a really good dinner, and everyone has their own little specialty, and they share it with each other. On the Army guys had a lot of great food things that they shared. And anyway, then we had that dinner, and then we sat around and we smoked boo, and coffee and a few sweets, and then we puddled up again, and it was interesting to have the Army folk part of the puddle, right? And but it was still sweet. It's so nice, right? Not lustful or as John said, fornication, right? No, fornication is when you use sex as a weapon. That's fornication. Anyway, so the next day, so this is going on my third day there. The Army kids, their second day there, and so we're figuring, okay, we got the firewood. We got enough firewood for 5 days. We have enough food. I mean, we've just been eating quite opulently for the last 3 days, so we have to. I only have 6 cans left of whatever, beans and this and that, and I have a couple. I had a big garbage bag full of frozen foods that I had thrown from the refrigerator into a garbage bag and stuffed in my car. So I had about 10 things of spinach and maybe 4 things of broccoli and 3 or 4 things of other things, right? And what else did I have? That was about it, right? And we had foraged some pretty interesting stuff, mushrooms and fungi and other kind of stuff. And the Army guys were good at that because they were already mountain kids before they become Army guys and gals. So that third day, we kind of figure out what more we have to do. And so, and we had gotten up pretty early. And so we had a nice breakfast. And then one of the kids' cell phone went off. Beep, beep, beep. And so the kid, gets the phone and she answers, yes. And she puts it on speakerphone. She goes, Sandy, where are you? Your mother's so scared of you, and she's been wanting me to call you, and I can't ever reach you. And now here you are. Where are you? And she says, well, I'm in West Virginia, and I'm kind of near that interstate exit where, 220 and 66, come together. Oh, yes. I live not that far from there. And your mother wants me to give you $1,000 in cash and give you one of my cars. And I'm ready to do that. So come and find, here's where I'm at. Your cell phone working? Yes. And can you, have the robot tell you where, I'll give you my address and my phone number. Yep. Okay. So anyway, our whole little project changes now. Everyone's going to go do what as we were having breakfast, deciding to do. And I have a car that works. So I will take this young lady to her aunt's and she will get a car and $1,000, right? So that'll help everyone a lot, right? So we get in the car and we drive there. And I said, all I got to do is, fill my gas tank up, with some of that money and maybe give me a little bit of it for where am I going to go? And he said, well, aren't you going to stay with us? I said, well, no, I think I have other things to do, but, I'm not leaving immediately, but, I'm going to leave sometime sooner rather than later because I know I have other people to help, other people to see, other things to do. And so, okay. So we're talking, she and I, as we're driving to her aunt's, right? It's probably 20 miles away. And we go through this town. Has a pretty, has a Kroger's and a Walmart's. And so, okay, we'll come back to this. And so, we go see her aunt, and the aunt is like, oh, and she's like looking at me, and her niece is just going on and on and on about what the last 3 days have been and how it's been amazing. And she's learned more in those 3 days than she's done at 4 years of college, and it's made her more. And her aunt is going, you are not the privileged, stuck-up little brat you've always been. You've kind of really, this journey has been good for you, right? You might make something of yourself. And so they are talking like that. And her aunt, is making us, lots of sandwiches. She's going to give us half the stuff that's in her refrigerator. And so, you know, we do that. And so we're driving back. Now she's in her car and I'm in my car. And we pull off and go into the Walmarts, right? We decide to go to the Walmarts to, get stuff we might need. And it's a supermarket too. So we'll hit that. So we're doing that. And we decide not to go nuts with the money. Just, budget of $150. That's all we're going to spend. We're only going to get things that are really important, nothing super luxurious. Right? You'll have a car, you'll have more money. You can figure out if you want to go that way. But, don't spend money you don't quite have yet. And there's another lesson. So we do. So we get, specific things, and that'll last. We bought a lot of oatmeal. There was a big 20-pound bag there. Said, wow, let's get more of this. So we got a few of those and a few of this and a few of that. And so we're at the checkout counter, and I'm like, got a walker. I was in the cart, and but I got, I had my walker with me, and as we're waiting online, I feel this pressure on my arm, and I look up, and there's this woman feeling my arm, and she looks like the Michelin Man. She's got this coat that has these rings of stuff around her, and she looks like the Michelin Man. And she looks at me, and she goes, what was the term she used? Oh, yes. Are you a handyman? And I kind of, depends. And she goes, on what? I said, what do you want me to be handy about? She goes, well, I've moved from California a year ago, and I found this amazing estate for nothing. And my mother and I moved in there, and it was and with my brother or cousin, I don't know what she was, but and everything kind of worked when we moved in, but over the months things have stopped working, and no one wants to come out and help or fix. We offered the money, and no one seems to come out there for some reason. I go, oh, okay. And I'm looking at the girl, and I'm looking at this woman, and she's maybe in her 50s, and she has a very attractive face, but I can't tell what her body looks like because she's wearing this Michelin suit. And I don't know what mom is going to be like, or her cousin or brother is going to be like. So I go, well, I'm kind of footloose and fancy free. I have no place to stay. And I only have, like $20. And she goes, oh, honey, don't worry about any of that. I said, okay, sounds like a good idea. Different, I've been with this bunch here. This girl represents, I don't tell her the whole story. I just say, some friends, and they have a place to stay, and it's everyone's in good shape. They don't need me to be handy with them, right? And I said, I'm not really a handyman. I'm a Mr. Fix-It. And she goes, oh, that's even better. So I said, fine, let's go. So we, cruise out to, give my best wishes to that young girl. I've gotten all those other people's phone numbers and emails and all of that. And so I strike out with the Michelin lady. And she does. She goes to this, I follow her, and we go out of that little town, and we kind of go up this ridge and go up on the backside, and we're like in the hills of West Virginia, the mountains of West Virginia. I mean, the high peaks of the Appalachians. And we just keep climbing up, and we come into this really amazingly beautiful patch in this forest. And it's like this whole thing is looking down into a valley, and it's just gigantic. I mean, it's like a hotel. It's like gigantic, right? And it's got off buildings and all kinds of stuff. And so, we drive up and we get out, and we, go in through the, she key, and she opens the door into, there's a door, and then three gigantic garage doors, a gigantic garage, probably at least 1,000 square feet just for the friggin' garage, right? And there's stairs that kind of go down, and then there's a door that kind of goes in. So we go through the door. It goes into not quite a basement, but kind of a basement. It's like an apartment, a downstairs apartment. And has bedrooms and has a big kitchen and 2 bathrooms, and then a big open space like a party space, right? It's got a ping pong table and a pool table, big fireplace, wood stove, and then there's a door. You go into that. It's like utility room. It's like all the circuit breaker boxes and all kinds of stuff, and the air handlers for the AC and the heat, HVAC, and there's also a boiler, and it's got hot water radiators, and the house is pretty cold, right? Not toasty woasty, and there's enough stuff here to heat the heck out of this place, right? So we go through that, and there's a staircase when we go upstairs, and that's the main floor, and it goes into that stairs kind of comes in the back into a big, gigantic kitchen that goes out an open space into a living room. It's not even a living room. It's like whatever that room is. It's like sitting room, hangout room, whatever you want to call that room. And then there's a big, more like real, great room. And then over here, there's a really nice dining room off of that kind of whatever you call it room, that. And then there is a number of bedrooms, and then there are these suites, right? And then over here, there's a staircase that goes upstairs to a whole nother floor, right? And then there's a whole nother wing that way, right? But I don't even go look at that. So I look at everything, and she's got 3 of these gigantic hot or cold point or whatever, industrial size refrigerators, and one's a freezer. It's just full of food, So I kind of peek in there, and I rummage around in the kitchen, and there it's got, every kind of utensil, frying pan, pot, plate, cup you'd ever want. And then over here, there's a larder full of canned stuff, and a room over here where all the fine plates and china and forks and silverware and all that. It's like a hotel, right? So I come out, and by that time, Mom and cousin or son show up, and the guy is as wacko but weirder than John. I know that's hard to believe, but he is like a college professor, right? And he's dressed like a college professor, and he's Genghis Khan, and he is Teddy Roosevelt, and he is this, and he is that, and I'm just going, okay, right, and so the Michelin lady says to me, well, he's part of the family, and he's harmless, and he's interesting, and sometimes we have to lock him in his room. I go, okay, and Mom is straight up California girl, maybe 10 years older than me, right? Maybe 20 years older than me, right? And I'm at this time, I'm 65, right? Almost 66, right? Between 65 and 66. And so mom is probably 75 or 76, and Michelin girl is maybe 55, right? And Sonny boy cousin is, I don't know, 40-ish, 50-ish, somewhere in there. So that's that. So I go, okay, first things first, I'm going to get this place warm, right? I said, how are you going to do that? I said, well, I'm going to, first of all, you got this big fireplace, right? And I said, there's this big pile of wood. So why don't, we're all in good health, put our coats on, put gloves on, hats on, and start bringing wood up on the deck here. We'll make a big pile of wood here, and we'll take a bunch of that and put it right here by the fireplace. And see how it's this nice nook here? We can stack, it's designed so you stack all the wood up. The fire's going to heat that wood up, so once you put that log on there, it's going to go poof, right? So we go out and do that, and I'm like still walking with a walker, right? I'm freaking carrying more wood than these guys, and I start doing that, and we get, and I said, listen, I can't go up the steps, so you guys, I'm going to carry a bunch. You got this roly-poly thing? Let's go stick all wood we can on the roly-poly thing, roll it over here. You guys carry it up the steps and put it there. And for every 2 logs you put there, take 2 logs into that where the fireplace is, right? And I'm gonna go get stuff to start the fire, kindling. So I do. And I go into the big garage, and there was a big pile of wood. Someone had a shop or something. There was some nice little chunks that would make great kindling, go up like that. I found some trees that had fallen down, and I just kind of pulled the bark off and put it in a cardboard box I found and take it up to the fireplace. And so I start building the main, I've already put maybe 10 logs in that thing next to the fireplace. And so I build a box, and then I fill it up with the kindling, and then I put the roof on the box, and I start that fire up, and it's not a wood stove per se. It's what is known as a Swedish firebox, right? So it's like a fireplace, right? You see it, but it goes up into the chimney, a metal box, and it has these metal things in it, and it has pipes that heats that up, and it blows air through it, and then the air goes, through ducts around the room, right? And that's what they got there. And I knew when I lived in Sweden, I lived in a house that had one of these, so I knew how it worked. And so, because if you don't know how it works, it's really hard to start the fire right off the bat. But once you get going, it's like a jet engine. It's like unbelievable. So I had experience with this. I knew how it worked. I, looked at all the different variable things it had and figured them out. And then I built the fire inside of that. And like I said, little house, and then kindling in the middle and the roof on top, put the match to it. You adjust the things, and the draw is unbelievable. And it shoots everything up and heats all those metal tubes that take the hot air all over the place, right? So I get that going. And it's a beautiful fire, just like the one I showed you in the videos downstairs. It's really burning there. And it has this little screen that you pull over it so the little embers can't pop out. But otherwise, there is no big door. It's not like a fire, it's not like a wood stove. It's a Swedish wood stove. Anyway, so I get it going, and within 5 minutes, that whole part of the house is not toasty, but warm-ish, right? And it's also pumping hot air down into that basement, right? That where there was an apartment down there, right? So that's good because that's where all the water pipes are, right? And so I go down there, and all the water pipes are pretty much PEX, so they won't freeze and break, right? Whoever built this place was pretty good at it, right? So again, there's another one of these Swedish firebox things, but this one has not only pipes taking air through it, but it has pipes taking water through it, right? To go off to radiators in the bedrooms, right? And so there's a pile of wood in the garage, and it has a little wheelie thing that I just put it in there and wheel it over to this thing and start a fire in it and get it going, right? And so then I see that part of this system will dump its heat into the HVAC system, right? And so, that will pump the hot air through the rest of the building so the whole building doesn't freeze up, right? Because it is friggin' nippy out there. It's got to be at least -10, at least. And this is like maybe 3 p.m, right? The height of the sun in January. Anyway, so we're doing. I hear them clanging around with the wood upstairs, so they're doing that, and I've got the thing downstairs cooking, and so I then go over to the air handler that's not seeming to want to work, right? And so I fool around with the different relays because it's not a straight up. This is like someone built this there, not like had it built in a factory, delivered, hooked a few wires up to it. So there were a bunch of idiosyncratic controls that I was fooling around with. And a couple of these relays, they kind of like plug in, right? So there aren't any, and these are like old school. I mean, today they'd use semiconductors, and these are plug-in relays. So, I basically, and 2 of them are like burnt, just toast, right? Just don't work, right? So I kind of, break the plastic off, pull the guts out, and then connect wires that came up from the prongs of the pluggy thing so as to just twist the wires so the relay doesn't have to go. This thing will be on all the time unless you hit the switch that turns it off, the main breaker to the air handler. So I basically plug that sucker in and turn it on, and bingo, it's taken all that heat from the Swedish gizmo into its system, and it's pumping it all over the place, right? So then I find a oil burner, right? Boiler, right? That again hooks up to that really heats the water up for the radiators in the suites, right? It's a separate system. And it also heats up the hot water for the bathrooms and the showers and the kitchen sink and the dishwasher, right? So I get that working, and I go look at the tank, and the friggin' oil thing is, filled up. It's not like, obviously they got it filled, and then it didn't work. So I get the thing working, and so it's heating hot water and heating the radiators in the bedrooms and the suites, and that's my first 3 hours, right? And so I go up there, and they're like sitting in the living room, and they have, when I met them all, they were all wearing like, me, coats and ski pants and hats and gloves inside the house, and now it's like toasty, and they're like, down to their, not skivvies, but they're not wearing their coats anymore. They're, so I'm looking at them, and they look in pretty good shape. And the Michelin girl, she's relatively attractive, and relatively, she's not obese, right? But you can tell that at some time she was athletic, and then she stopped, right? And so anyway, so I hobble up, and they're like, "Hey man, that is great, man. It's warm, it's good." I said, "Okay, so let's look what's in your refrigerator. I'll make you something to eat. What have you been eating?" And Mom said, "Well, there's all this frozen stuff, but everything was so cold. We, just didn't eat. We just ate, cheese and snack food. Right? I said, well, I'm going to make a real meal. So I do. Pull out a chicken, and they have big microwave that you can, take it like frozen block of ice to ready to be cooked. And so I'm like, made that and chicken and vegetables and rice. And I saw that they had some nice, interesting custardy things you could make. So I made some custards. And they had a pretty good wine cellar and a bunch of booze. So, I made everyone a Irish coffee. And we had, Entenmann's with that. Not quite the pastries I'm used to, but sweet and, Anyway, so we have that. Dinner's cooking. I also started a big pot of soup, right? And clean a bunch of vegetables to make a really nice salad, right? Like a Greek salad. So I said, okay, so here it is. And we got maybe 1 hour of sunlight, right? So let us do our best to move as much wood into the garage, with that wheelie thing, in this next hour. Because we can get 10 of those wheelie things full to the gills with wood and pile it up in the garage, then we're good to go, because the whole heating thing is just through that one door, and there the gizmo is, and the wood will be dry. Because I have a feeling, it's been ridiculously cold for the last 10 days. It's going to snow anytime soon. I can just feel it. And they said, okay. So we do. We all 4 get down there and work as a team, and we do. We fill up that whole side of the wall with wood. We took, I would say, a third of a chunk out of their big pile of wood that they had there. And it was a big pile, like a mountain of wood. And they had covered over it with a tarp, so it was semi-dry. But in the garage, because this one where I was going to put it, these windows in the garage hit that side of the wall for a good 3 or 4 hours every day when the sun is hitting. So I knew it would dry the wood up and get it ready to work, and I got it all set. So the other little wheelie gig was right there, so I could just pile it and just keep feeding the Swiss wood stove. So anyway, and that's what we did. And then I completed the dinner upstairs. It was ready, and we had this, and we ate at the dining room table with the tablecloth and not paper plates, and it was really nice. Had a really great thing. Drank 2 bottles of wine between the 4 of us, and these girls liked their wine. But the thing that did work, that they made sure worked, was their satellite TV screen, and they had a zillion channels and the internet, and so this is not a bad thing. So that was the first day, right? And so, boy, they are happy as a clam. So they give me my own suite with a, unbelievable memory foam bed, not John's little crinky thing, and my own, and the room they gave me had its own jacuzzi, its own like super duper shower, and it was a computer there, and so it was more than I would ever, and a TV, right? Little kitchenette over there on the side. So anyway, so I, that's the first day. So I go to sleep. I have a great, just unbelievable. Wake up in the morning. The sun comes in the thing. It's, like 7 in the morning. I go down. There's nobody awake. I go down. I put some wood in the Swiss stove down below, put some wood in the wood stove in the fireplace on the main floor there. And, so it was probably around 58 when I woke up in the house. And I got it up to about 68, nice and toasty. And I They had a lot of English muffins, my fave, and so I toasted up a bunch of them and made some eggs Benedict, and and coffee, and that's when they showed up. I kind of smelled the coffee, and everyone came out in their bathrobes and slippers, and I had eggs Benedict, pancakes, French toast, and really good coffee, right? And it was still another sunny day, right? So I said, okay, this is good. So let's, have a beautiful breakfast. And then now I got all of this working, but you said you had a lot of other problems. And she goes, yes, there's a lot of electric problems in the other wing of the house. And that's kind of, we had this guy come and all he did was turn everything off over there. And he did turn off the water lines and drain them. So if you could go check and make sure that all is in pretty good shape. I go, okay. And then she goes, and then there's the crafts room. And I said, crafts room? She goes, well, I do weaving and all. I said, I built looms, and I used to, we talked about looming, and she goes, well, I moved all my stuff from California, and it's still in boxes, and it needs shelves, and it needs lighting, and it needs this, and it needs that. And could you do that? I said, oh, yeah, no problem. Yes. I said, you got any tools? And she goes, well, maybe, but we can go to Lowe's. Whatever we need, we can go to Lowe's. I said, okay, sounds like a plan. And so, and she had 4 nice cars, the son cousin had his car. He had a little Morris Minor, and mom had her big Cadillac, and they had a nice pickup truck and a nice Subaru and a nice Jeep, right? So I had a lot of vehicles. And so now I went and checked them all. I said, where are the car keys? And she said, well, all the keys for everything is in that box over there. They're all marked. And so I got the cars. I'm going to go see about your cars, see if they work. And everybody started. Everything was good. Everybody had it topped off to top, right? So everyone had gas and it all looked good. So I went over to the crafts. And well, first I went over to the other wing and I checked all that. And it was pretty safe. And that seemed to have been the first building that had been. And then they built this, which was the really, really, really nice building, right? And the other one was nice too, but not as nice as the one that this was. And it was straight up electric heat, which is like, And they didn't have the really interesting alternative, Swedish wood stoves. They didn't even have fireplace. Well, they did. They had one big fireplace, but it was more for show, right? So I said, okay. So I'll check this out later. That's not top of the interesting thing. So I went over the crafts thing, and yes, it was a total mess and needed a zillion shelves, and everything was in boxes, and everything was a mess, and it was just thrown over there, right? And I said, okay. And there was hardly any lighting, and, so, and it had these really funky fluorescent lights that just wouldn't work. And so I said, okay, we're going to replace all this with LEDs, and, So I said, okay, so I took my phone, took a few pictures of there, went up to her and sat down at her little designy desk, and I said, so let's make a floor plan, draw out everything you want, and I'll just do it. And she goes, oh, you're so good. You're real, or are a handy guy? I said, no, I'm not. I'm a Mr. Fix-It. I fix it. So anyway, and so she was interesting, and she, I talked to her, and she had started out as a social worker and just went up in the bureaucratic structure until she was probably making about 150, 200 grand a year on the state nickel. And she had a really good retirement plan. And she never went traveling. She never did anything. She saved all her money. She invested it. And so she had a nice little nest egg, and her mom was uber rich. She married 3 really rich guys, right, for their money, and murdered them basically. And so the mom was the more interesting one. She had a life, right? She had traveled the world before she even had this one, the Michelin girl, and Sonny Boy nephew. And that, I never quite got the true story about that guy. And that was an interesting story, because all the stories she would get, so mom liked doing micro doses of LSD, right? And she had her supply of boo, and she always was kind of drunk, but not really. So she was really smart and had really had a wild, crazy life in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And then she still was good looking, and she was marrying the old farts for their money and killing them with sex and lobsters, like my great aunt did. And that's what I mean. All of humanity is on the spectrum someplace. They're almost not an individual. They're just representative of something on the spectrum, right? So I was enjoying myself. Mom was a trip. Michelin girl was very sweet and nice, and she was like in the shadow of her mom, and there were other things that had happened to her that kind of, right? And so she had cats rather than boyfriends, and she had a lot of cats. We only have 2 now, right? And this place is so big we hardly see them, right? But they do take care of the mice. And so, anyway, and she was interested. So she had worked for the States. So she was interesting. I would just say, so tell me about your job. And she would tell me about it. She worked in California. So she told me about when she was growing up with her mother, who they never left California, but they never stayed in any one place long. Yeah, they lived on communes and in movie stars' houses and all kinds of. Young child, she had a very interesting kind of life. But I think certain things happened to her in that very interesting life that kind of stuck her. She never talked about it, but I could, and then I talked to her mom about it, and her mom would talk more about it, but still not talk about it. But she would talk about it in reference to herself, like how she was when she was a girl, and her father was, a cad in the new burgeoning movie industry. And so, these guys were, and these folks mixed into a number of my novels. I've written 15 of them so far. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you are. If you want to send me something to my PayPal, that would be, I'm on the BOP. And man, I can never, somebody threw something in my PayPal last week. And thank you very much for that. And that's what got me my, my hotel room last night. And anyway, so we're getting, it's interesting. So I'm, happy as a clam, just working on all this stuff and staying in my little suite and writing and looking at things on the internet and spending half the day in the jacuzzi and doing micro, cuts with mom and smoking boo and drinking martinis with a Michelin girl. And they had one of these swimming pools that was like a big bathtub, and you swam, and they had this thing where the water rushed at you and you swam in it, right? And she would, that was another thing she wanted to get fixed so she could, not so much, what she liked to do was she had these ropes tied to the metal things to get out of the pool, one on either side, and they were big, thick, soft ropes. It looked like she was in S&M kind of world, and she would kind of put them on her ankles, and then place herself into the gushing water naked, and kind of masturbate on the gush of water and be waterboarded at the same time. She got me to get it to work and heat it up really good. And one day because I used to be, a swimmer, a competitive swimmer in high school. So I was going to do some laps. I swam in these things, and they're kind of cool because you just swim. You can swim 1.5 miles in this long bathtub because the water's rushing at you, and you're swimming into the rush. And the way it's not like a big wave, but it's like calm water, but it's moving a lot of water this way, right? So great to masturbate. If you're a woman, you just like to spread your legs and get the big gush right there on the old clit, and and she liked to be waterboarded, it seemed. Anyway, so one day I'm, swimming, doing my laps, but just being right there. And she kind of eases herself in behind me. And because the water's rushing so much there, she doesn't have to be like where I'm at, where I'm just swimming straight into the gush. She's like behind me. And then one day, and then I swam enough, and what I would do, and I didn't really realize she was back there, and I just kind of like stopped swimming and flipped over on my back and let myself float backwards, and like my head went right into the V there, and she was, oh, and so she looked like she was drowning, so I kind of picked her up, and she was quite a well, figured woman of her fifties, and anyway, so she feigns like she's drowning, and but she's like tied up to the, so I had to get her untied, and it was quite interesting. And so we float to the other end, and said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "So what were you doing?" She says, this is how I was just relaxing. You kind of surprised me with your head." And I said, "Well, didn't you see me swimming there?" She said, "Yeah, but I thought you would just get out the ladder and walk away." I said, and I didn't say anything. I just went, okay. So that was an interesting interlude. So anyway, I said, "Well, okay, I'll just leave you to your devices, and I'm going to go and take a shower and get dressed, and I'm going to make dinner." And she goes, "Okay, see you later." So I do, and and I've been there now almost 3 weeks, right? So I've been gone from John for at least a month. And where we are, there is no cell signal, so I can't get any phone calls in or out. And I haven't paid the subscription for a while. And so it's kind of dead. And so I don't know what John's thinking. He probably isn't even aware that I'm gone, And so anyway, I'm, made dinner. We have another nice dinner. We have another nice evening watching a movie and some TV and this and that. And I kind of excuse myself and go up to my little suite and look on the internet a little bit. And I'm tired, and I kind of go to bed and I fall asleep. And I wake up, and I am being stimulated by the Michelin girl, right? She is kind of rubbing me, and I kind of, don't like freak out, or I still feign being asleep. So she's, rubbing me in my sleep, and that's like something, out of Pornhub. And so anyway, so I kind of am getting pretty aroused, and so she's trying to mount me while I'm still asleep. And I'm kind of going, this is where I go, "Oh, wait, what's going on? Who's, and so, and she kind of gets not embarrassed, but she kind of rolls over and goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Well, after that, our little experience in the pool, I got a little roused, and I have needs, and I really like you. I've had a few boyfriends, but I really like you. And I said, well, I'm kind of an old-fashioned guy. And she goes, what's that mean? She goes, well, I kind of need, I just don't have sex. I want intimacy. So, well, that's what I want. I want intimacy right now, real bad. I want intimacy. I said, well, I get to know, you don't know me well. I said, not really. I know your mother much better. And your brother, cousin, son guy, I kind of know him better than you. You really don't. Well, I've told you everything about. No, you just told me times, dates, figures, job, things. You never tell me anything about how you really feel about anything. Your mom tells me everything about how she feels. Well, she's an artist. I said, so are you. I mean, you got that crafts place down there, and I fixed it all up for you. I've never seen you use it yet. And so I want to see you use that. I like to do crafts too. I've told you that. Well, I told you I was a guy made looms. I'm a weaver. Come on, let's do that kind of stuff together. Then we can do some of this kind of stuff together. I'm not against that, but I'm an old-fashioned guy. And so she goes, well, how long is it going to take? And I said, well, we need to have some experiences, and all we are in this house here. We need to go do, well, we go to Lowe's. And I said, well, why don't we do some other stuff? We're going to go to Lowe's tomorrow to get some light fixtures. So for your crafts place and for the other off buildings, I'm going to bring electricity out to them. And so, why don't we? There's actually quite a nice little restaurant. Why don't we can go in that have a nice little meal together in a restaurant? It's something couples do. Why don't we do that, right? And there's a movie house. Let's go see a movie in a movie theater. Oh, we have the satellite. No. Movie theater. And there's this other place. It's a college right nearby, where on Saturday they have dancing. Let's go dancing. Your mom would love to. Let's all three of us go dancing. And she was, but I don't know. I feel uncomfortable. I feel anxious. I said, well, you weren't too anxious, just a moment ago. This is how, if you want this is what it's got to be. And so I'm working on this and that. And she's like, John, here, let me give you money. So I said, sure. Somebody wants to give me money. I don't charge. But you want to give me money? Not a problem. I'll take it. When I'm in service, I don't charge anything. You want to give me an offering, again, PayPal, right? So anyway, that's been almost 2 hours. We're going on 3 hours here. Let's see, how many hours is it? Let's see, what have you guys been saying? So Lindsay, was that enough of the story of the Russian girl? There's only one of you left. How about some more thumbs up? How about some comments? How about getting more people to subscribe? And remember, you can always throw something on PayPal. And I'll finish this story next time. I'm leaving you at the cliff here. Cliffhanger. Boop, 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 boop.